Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Apex Legends Global Series Regional Finals for North America. My name is Rainday, and I want to welcome all of you who may be watching wherever you are and joining us for this special day. We appreciate you as well, and if you have seen what happened last week, we have a statement for you as to what we'll be doing in terms of continuing our North American broadcast put together by EA, Respawn, and our team, and I'll read that to you right now to kick off the show. Following last week's events, Respawn has rolled out updates to the game, and with those protections in place, here's what you can expect from tonight's ALGS NA Finals. In addition to our confidence in Respawn's fixes, we also wanted to give players additional peace of mind by hosting the ALGS NA Finals privately and broadcasting the matches after the fact. That means you are watching the result of those matches that were held privately. We'll resume the NA Regional Finals with Match 3. In partnership with EA, Respawn, Anti-Cheat, and Security, we reviewed all the data and are confident there were no impacts to the first two matches of the NA Regional Finals, so those scores will stand. Tonight's matches were played on the Season 20 patch to ensure competitive integrity and consistency across all the regional qualifying series for the Split 1 playoffs in Los Angeles. We've also investigated the EMEA and APAC regional finals and have confirmed there were no impacts to those matches either. Therefore, we will not replay those series and those results will stand. We appreciate all the efforts and support of our partners at EA, Respawn, and all of the impacted teams and players as we work to find the most fair and secure way of completing the NA regional finals. And with that being said, it does mean we kick off the action again in the most important day for North America, where 20 teams will find out which 12 are heading to Los Angeles. My name is Rainday, as I mentioned, and I brought the gang back to kick off where we left off and begin the competition yet again. Vicky, Kitty, Dia, and Zephyr, of course, joining me, and we will continue to have their thoughts and analysis throughout the games and the matches played today. But before we get into that, I need to let you know about how it has already transpired. Happened in our earlier matches before we begin today's part of the tournament. So Vicky, let's walk them through match one.
For our first match, we definitely had that thermal end zone that was a little finicky for the squads that end up taking advantage of that POI. Being Disguised, who had the high ground over Complexity. Yes, as you see, Sentinel in Monsoon's hands, the Sentinel King himself, but with 4 squads left, that one rat was so important. That was Optic with Skittle looking from afar like Batman to at least try to get those placement points that he can for the rest of Optic. But you had TSM playing it out as a duo right below Disguise and Complexity that had the slow side of this final circle. They played this very patiently because from the other perspective of Disguise, you did have Design drop down and try to set up a little cheeky Wraith portal off to the side where he was focus fired by the rest of Complexity. But that doesn't take away from the fact that both Lou and Monsoon had lost out on Kimchi Lee, so they had to play out the remaining part of this final circle as a duo. Thankfully, with TSM also being right below them, they were also able to focus down on Disguise before Complexity was also able to try to sandwich them. Holding this position was so important, but having a charged up Sentinel for this final circle where you can expect most of these players to either have purple or reds is so crucial, considering the fact that that Sentinel just absolutely deletes your shield, especially when it's already charged up here. But this specific crack and all the caustic gas to build up all this space here, Complexity was unfazed. It was just a matter of time before TSM had gotten eliminated, and Complexity took the dub after that first game, giving them 7 kills and the 12 extra placement points for the win.
As you appropriately mentioned, it was TSM Disguised the Complexity in that final 3, and DSG, because of the kills, actually took a second place there. and of course were able to still tie up with Complexity, though they were the actual winners of the game. Shout outs to Monsoon and that Sentinel. We expect to see more of that action today, but that would just be game number 1, and of course that would set the tone. But Dia, game 2, it's all about keeping it consistent. Let's walk them through what happened in our second match of that day.
Yeah, game 2 provided a really sharp contrast to what happened in game 1. This time, it was all about who controlled the most open space, and Dark Zero, to their credit, actually managed to find themselves a really fantastic spot to play out the end game. After a big battle over Big Mod, they ultimately ended up going Geyser side and slowly making their way in to take the advantageous low ground position away from teams that otherwise had height in Grandma's House and at Lava Siphon. This worked out really well for Dark Zero, and again, great call from them, but I do want to bring attention to the fact that there are some remarkable similarities in the way that this end game played out. Not just the fact that, yes, it is in fact 2 teams that need to drop onto each other once again, and the team that comes from far away ultimately finding the win, but the fact that Optic made it into the top couple of squads once more. This time, not as a solo, but instead as all 3, and ultimately ended up dropping onto EEC to hand Dark Zero the win. While this is still a win for Dark Zero and it looks fantastic, a team like Optic really benefited from this end game by collecting a lot of extra KP and placement points that they've now been able to collect with consistency throughout the first 2 games on World's Edge. And I say that because World's Edge is what we're about to switch away from. Now that Dark Zero have secured this win, now that we've got some initial points on the board, all of that's about to change, and these end games that we've seen play out very similarly now twice are going to shift as well, while open space becomes all the more valuable on our next map. Dark Zero walk away from game 2 very happy with a 23 points, but Optic, still the team to keep your eyes on. Keep the consistency going from game 1.
Especially when you consider that starting this, Optic have started outside of the top 12, meaning they are not qualified as the points stand, but a performance that would put them in second, as we could take a look here at our overall series results and examine that, actually would put Optic in the driver's seat. But they've got to continue to find results after they did in these first 2 games. Ben and Zephyr, you know, where do we stand heading into it? Because game 3, if it ended like this, would have some big implications.
Absolutely. Optic right now would walk away happily with the 21 points in the overall. That would be enough to thrust them into the realm of that potential spot at Los Angeles, especially when you take a look down on that leaderboard at Cloud9, currently working in at 16th, only walking away with 4 points. That has swapped their positions, and it is currently not enough for Cloud9 to qualify unless going into these next few games they continue to check themselves and fix what they were unable to find in our first 2 matches.
One of the other elements I want to get your thoughts on as well is XSET, a team sitting in 18th if it were to end right now, which of course we will play at least 6 games today, Zephyr. Even if someone crosses match point, gets 50 points, and then wins that next game after they already have 50, if it ended right there, there would be problems for XSET, a team that many expect to be at LAN and is really consisting of one of our top performing teams and coaches in the history of the ALGS.
Yeah, it is a daunting hill for them to climb right now, currently sitting at 8 points behind. The next closest being that of Optic, currently in second, who, even if they potentially fall down, a team like XSET still needs to close the gap. And when you're out there at the bottom of the leaderboard, you have to remember, in terms of the overall scoreboard, you are only accumulating 1 point per slot until you really start to get up there. So for XSET, it is far from impossible, but they would need to shape themselves up, find their way to that top 10, and continue to accelerate even then further past that to lock themselves in a secured spot.
Well, it's a great assessment, Ben. We'll have you switching in and out throughout the day, casting, giving us your thoughts on the desk as well. But I think it's time to kick this off where we left off. Match 3 is nearly upon us, and for that, let's go over to our casters, Vicky and Dia.
Thank you so much, Rainday. We've waited long enough, Dia. It's time to run it back, and I cannot wait to focus on the teams that are waiting on that cusp too. I love how Zephyr touched up on what's on the line here. What's the stake for XSET? Because this is a team that I feel like even way back when I was calling them Liquid, I have not seen them miss a LAN. I have not been able to. I've always caught Nocturnal at these live events, and to not be able to see that potentially happen would be absolutely bonkers. I mean, the stakes even being set up for C9, Optic, who have been able to perform fantastically after those first 2 games. So much on the line for a lot of our tier 1 teams.
Yeah, and a lot of last-minute scrambling that they all have in common. Now that we are moving to Stormpoint, though, I think that some of your fears will be assuaged, Vicky. And it's not just you. Any XSET fans in the audience as well should be aware that the drop spots for this are not as heavily contested. XSET really suffered in their first 2 matches, not just because they were changing POIs to Monument, but because Monument was contested. They were landing right next to Ape Gang and splitting a POI that was already center of the map and had basically no loot to begin with. Now that they're shifting over to Cascade, yes, they may still be in the center of the map, but at least they're not going halvesies.
Yeah, but that loot, that's definitely going to be something to think about here. And I love how you highlighted it. No longer going to get contested as drastically on World's Edge because we are moving on to Stormpoint for our next 2 games. As this is match point format, we will be shifting between these 2 maps every 2 games now. So this also comes into question where most of these teams feel more comfortable. Whether we see that consistency transpire between World's Edge and to Stormpoint. Thinking about where some of these circles have more likely gone, talking about Echo HQ that we've seen so many times on the southern side of Stormpoint. But let's not waste any more time. Game number 3 starts now on Stormpoint.
North to south drop shift pattern will mean the teams that have high ground get an even bigger advantage this time around because Lightning Rod and Zoo Station, that is TSM and LG, get to drop first onto the map, picking up whatever loot they can manage and then hopefully making their way into zone based on the information they're able to gather. Dark Zero, we're dropping over by Mill, will have a very different time of it given that their start is effectively delayed from all of those other teams that land on the north side.
That's a good point, too, because then you have to talk about the teams that have already gotten either the Evo Harvester. Well, the Evo Harvester spawns within a few seconds into the first game, but rather the scan on the beacons, the survey beacon or the ring console that could actually help some of these teams already start to rotate quick from that north side here. Dark Zero being one of those teams that have the ring beacon over to the south side of Mill. Have no issue to that, but we also highlighted Ape Gang earlier on, who likes to land on the side of Mill, Millage rather, and they won't be contesting Dark Zero there, but they could take a lot of space between the armory and that north side of Cenote Cave.
It's not a terrible spot to land if you're planning to move relatively quickly. And one of the important things that this does for Ape Gang and the surrounding ecosystem is that by landing here in Millage, they do effectively deny E8 being able to drop by Cenote and take a Trident. I know it sounds like a weird point to make, but Ape Gang landing in between E8 and the closest available Trident actually means that Elevate's gaming is severely impacted just starting the game.
Talk about those quick rotations. I mean, I know I mentioned Echo HQ, but I guess these final circles really, truly love to be a throwback for me because it looks like we may be going to that same spot north side of Echo HQ. It could have two different pools. I have also seen the circle pull slightly to the north side by the Choco Pylon, but I could see this pulling much more over to the east side, closer to Devastated Coast and Echo HQ that we've seen so many times before. So many teams already also on their rotate. The evac tower called them from Sentinels. Space Station Complexity dropped in, and already Cloud9 on the edge of that next circle.
I do know that with Complexity making their way in from Command Center, they're going to have an unusually fast rotation. They are still, in fact, airborne. That's the way that you're going to have to do this. There are a couple of good spots for Complexity to play out of, but one of the things that is very different about them than any other roster we're seeing right now is the fact that not only are they rotating early, but they're one of the teams running Watson in order to do it, making up for that lack of shield economy that they would otherwise have with the quick rotation, and instead using the generator to supplement that, to keep them safe, even in, albeit a little bit more awkward of a position. This IMC Armory not nearly as safe a spot as it used to be.
And left it on absolute sticks. I mean, they were lacking on that loot considering that fast rotation that you had mentioned, and they're going to be staying put here for now. So many other teams have already got into that final circle position. EEC with a 30-30 and Skull Piercer in hand. Great looks for them as EEC do land in Devastated Coast, so naturally they have that POY position advantage that they were able to set up for quickly.
And EEC are buy-sitting here this early into the game, really hoping that the ring pulls into Devastated Coast, because if not, dropping out of high ground is going to be very difficult to make work. Well, SSG fight on the low ground up against Drop-In Gaming. This space can technically be shared, but it's early enough in the game that you could 50-50 a 3v3 and get yourself some extra kills.
Especially early enough like this, too. Oriole's trying to take a different off angle. Havoc in hand, getting pinged low by that Thermite while he's already low. Will be able to restabilize quickly, but he opens the door and immediately comes out the Cossack, the nade, blowing that door wide open, leaving Drop-In Gaming as a duo to fight this off.
And now that it's a duo, SSG can and should push the advantage. It is still early enough for them to do without risking a third party, and that's going to continue for about a minute or two. So 120 seconds do SSG have to confidently finish off what they now know is a two-person squad. They have an indomitable advantage right now, and I'm very surprised, Vicky, to not see them pushing this.
It's the Cossack v Cossack curse, too. Of course, the Cossack is the one that likes to take that space and finding an opportunity. I saw a shot off to the left side from a team that has high ground there. Drop-In Gaming do get eliminated. They clean up that squad quickly. They wanted to make sure that they had the tools that they need just in case a third party could have come from the high ground. But they are safe for now. They're safe to loot up as well. As we take a look at Moist, who also being able to have the POY advantage over by Echo. Sitting pretty in that middle sniper spot, with Ape Gang around as well as Legacy to their south side. Complexity in between Echo HQ and Devastated Coast, but with Legacy having that slight high ground, sharing more of this space on the other side of Moist, they're not going to be giving up this space, seeing teams like Dark Zero getting pressured out. You mentioned the Trident earlier, and for reasons like this, they were able to take the Trident, move quickly from Mill all the way over to the edge here. Now taking the Gravity Cannon, well, they will be in the line of sight of the squads that have already taken control over the high ground, as well as the armory that we saw earlier.
Complexity are taking some shots at this as well, but Dark Zero's move here is a smart one. It's pretty easy to relocate using the gravity cannons, but we very rarely see teams do it because of how much noise it makes, how vulnerable you are when landing. With Bangalore to make up for some of that, Dark Zero again played the positioning game. Vicky, this spot is a terrible place to play from if you want to get kills, if you want to play active, but in terms of spots that are unlikely to get pushed, and it may very well be in the end game and a winning spot at that, Dark Zero overrolled absolutely fantastically.
Oh man, I mean, that's also off of the fact that Dark Zero had gotten, I believe it was 10th in that first game there too, so they still have a good amount of that KP to work with if they want to play this patiently for that final circle. Talk about on the other side of things though, Optic putting themselves on the board. Green Wall remains up and strong with the foundation, and with this rotation on the Trident, they're looking to try to approach the circle from that north side. Maybe even try to get that ring console, or rather the survey beacon that's to the north side here, if they could get some extra information on where everybody else is settled. And it looks like they actually are opting to take the evac tower instead, so that way they can float overhead by that rock.
You know, I'm pretty surprised to see this, Vicky, and I'm going to flat out call it as something that Optic could have and should have done better. Hitting the ring console right next door to them would provide so much more information to Optic that they likely would be in a much better endgame position were they to know where this next ring was going. We, of course, are blessed with that information, so let's talk a little bit about this and how it'll impact not just Optics, but a lot of other teams' chances, say Disguised even rotating in late, who should actually find themselves right next to a solo member of 9 Lives in the next few seconds.
Oh man, even that one member of Optic taking their time to take that evac tower, Optic dropping down on that building over to the side of Launchpad. I know 9 Lives were right by them on the other side here. Native Gaming coming through that choke. And with Disguise taking their time to rotate through Cedo, 9 Lives being on that south side exiting out of Barometer, Disguise has nothing to worry about, but something it is nice to know is the Catalyst, Bloodhound, and Wraith. The Wraith being the one true thing that really allows Disguise to stand out, but it's allowed them to get out of such tricky situations with design just being so on point with the Wraith.
And really interesting that Disguised have gone with Catalyst today. They were thinking about running Rampart, and I know this because, well, we've watched a lot of scrims. We've watched them play on Storm Point before, but the very fact that they've changed up to Catalyst says quite a bit about the end games that we've been seeing on Storm Point and how much they've rewarded those brief seconds of pseudo invulnerability that Catalyst gives you. Being able to completely cut off a team's line of sight, if only for 10-15 seconds, can completely change your game, especially when you're making it to the final 3 squads. Happy to see Disguise picking this up, and it's only going to give them yet another fantastic rotational tool.
So it's very interesting to cut off any information if you can with the amount of teams running the Bloodhound, so that way they can get the scan through the Bangalore smokes. That's something to consider with the catwall coming up and the Bloodhound not being able to scan right through that that wall once it's already online. Disguised with their rotate on the Trident, they are going to be coming in slowly behind Furia from this north side. Once again, there was that survey beacon that actually does get scanned right in front of them. That's Furia that is just waiting for them, and now they know that Disguise was trying to take the slow approach to rotate into the circle.
Fascinating to see Disguised still rocking up on it, not wanting to pick a fight, of course, but very much knowing that the teams ahead of them, like Furia, do need to start making their own moves into the ring. You can't sit here and gatekeep a team forever because it'll ultimately be costing you your own chance of success. Disguised will get a good read on where everyone else is sat and likely be able to play things out well with the information. Will give them a good spot to fight for, if not too hard. You want to be able to avoid teams. Actually, Vicky, let's talk about it. Bringing up the map real quick for some excellent uncontested spots. Furia have just rotated up from where Disguised were, rather down, and now have an interesting conundrum presented to them. Do you, as Furia or TSM, fight for the high ground, where we see LG sat, or take what, in my opinion, would be the better play, and make your way around this rock, playing through the low ground? This approach that TSM could have previously taken, and now Furia can take, gives you one of the very unique spots in the game where you can siege a team like LG without having to worry about the squads that will be coming from the north. And I'm going to highlight them right now because there are a lot of teams that will be fighting for LG and XSET's places.
Depends on who of these teams right here in Launchpad want to take that more outward rotate. Because I feel like with Furia and the way that they like to play and take some of these fights, they've been playing a lot more aggressive, and they're usually not afraid to try to take more of these fights. But with the amount of teams that will be fighting for that northern choke, that is going to be looking like a bloodbath. I could understand TSM just trying to take space and prevent other teams from having the ring console and a survey beacon that's already in Launchpad. And now they have to worry about Furia, who are at their backs, that could purposely wait them out and slow rotate around the edge of the circle.
it's just a really rough situation for TSM. You don't necessarily want to take a fight cold up against Furia, and you can't take too much time on this fight because then the ring's going to close and neither of you are going to have a choice anyway. What this ultimately should look like for TSM is a late Valkyl, because taking a 3v3 is an unnecessary risk, and while a Valkyl, yes, is a risk as well, it's one that they can control a lot better than how well any other team plays. They can look for, well, a good spot. In fact, it's so complicated, Vicky. I want to take a look at how TSM are approaching this from the inside.
Maybe here we could land.
Yeah, think about all the landing spots.
Like we
can land on like one of the staircases. Like we can land one of the stair. I think all the buildings are taken. I think we have to, or we can land here too. I think that we can live there on my ping when zone closes.
Yeah. Can maybe land under the bridge.
That's what I was saying. Your ping.
We got the Valkyl from the phone here, Jordan. Come to me, bro.
Super safe right here. Super safe right here.
This is evac in the gas. I think we go to my ping. If that's taken, then we have to land like one of the staircases, maybe on the side here on my ping. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Come on.
This dude can see us here.
I'm here.
You smoke this, man? Going out. We're gonna be the only team Valkyl team, so remember that.
Yeah. I think that spot is open.
Yeah.
Dip down a little bit and go back up.
You can land on that end of this bridge, maybe.
That spot looks open, bro. I'm being. It looks open.
I'm going for it.
Go for it. Yeah. Call safe spots right away.
I'm landing here. I don't know.
Yeah, we're good.
Where's the safe spots? In the crate?
No, not really.
Maybe.
There's a team on top. On
this corner, maybe? Hey, this corner's pretty good. This corner's pretty good.
Let's find a safe spot.
This corner's good, but
I'm safe here too. I'm safe here too on me. I think, kind of. We're chilling.
Yeah.
They might get pushed to west. Maybe not. You keep your smokes when we get shot.
Find more safe spots.
There's nobody in Echo.
Oh, the Hail Mary Valkyl works again here for TSM. They get to see another day in a different clearing, not contested by these squads. Meanwhile, Dia, you were talking about the slow rotate over by the other side to try to siege LG. Well, Furia, who tried to do that and rotate from the back end of Launchpad, end up losing out on their tournament lives, sending them right back to the lobby and catching LG as only a duo left.
Disguised on this rotate as well, ended up falling. They're another team that we unfortunately won't get to catch in the end game. With LG now down a member as well, I hesitate to say that they're going to come out of high ground unscathed, Vicky, especially when we are pulling hard into Devastated Coast. You remember we talked about EEC earlier on today when they were playing up on the high ground to Devastated Coast saying, please let the zone pull here. They've got to be very happy with how this has turned out so far, because this is a hard Devastated Coast zone.
Especially from the high ground that they're going to be in, but I do have to highlight C9 called it amazingly where this next circle is going to be pulling. But before we see where their rotate's going to be, Optic Gaming now also trying to figure out a spot underneath the bridge here. Saw the care pack earlier on that had been taken. 14 squads still left here, and this next circle is going to be brutal because you have teams like Optic playing underneath Elevate. Caustic Gas is doing enough of that tick damage. They're set up all over the place with these caustic traps. But while they try to fight for at least the high ground, they know that exit's on the other side. No blowdown scan to see. Gonna be able to pick up on that one player that's on the high ground here. That it may be Native Gaming, but sharing that space is also Ape Gang to the side of Native, and then exit neighboring Ape Gang.
You see the Seer scan, and now you know it's Native. They are the only team to be running Seer on Storm Point. It's been working for them so far, but now they're going to have to push it into overtime because Optic must needs take the fight on high ground, and even that is not enough. Whoever wins on height still has to take at least 3 more fights on low ground to make it into the zone. Everyone knows it. Optic are sprinting past the engagement as Native struggle to find an answer, and E8 evac over it all. Vicky, it is chaos on the north side of the zone.
And this is what we're expecting with the Bango coming in. Native look like they may be meeting one another in the lobby. They get taken out. TSM also taking some shots while they're still safe without being contested. Their backs with the wall protecting them. Optic Gaming losing out on not playing this as a duo. They've tried to infiltrate the same space that EEC were on and cannot overtake EEC. Even with them holding it down and with the caustic traps, it is just too much damage. But look who is right on top of them. It is Moist, who have managed to climb their way up above, and they have nades while they're at it.
Can Moist do what Optic could not? At this point, I'm also asking myself if it's worth it. The high ground that Moist have is arguably more valuable than the inside of this building. Unfortunately, this has now become a focal point for the entire lobby. The high ground is no longer in zone come next ring. And while you've pointed out C9, who have predicted the zone immaculately, they're the next inheritors of a lot of pressure with teams like Dark Zero, who are sitting uncontested on the west side of this zone, now looking directly at C9.
It's just so crazy. We're going from 14 squads to 7 squads from that bloodbath of that circle pulling away from all the squads that were stuck on that north side here. EEC, though, because this is a team that lands in this POI and they've been waiting patiently, they are rocking all blues. They're already at the natural health disadvantage based off of evil shields and even perks alone. So now backing away, they're really going to have to rely on Carter to build up this space here, put in some extra pressure with the caustic gas before the enemy team on the other side, who has that caustic, tries to build up that same space. Now playing off the high ground, you can see TSM have also rotated from their safe spot. They booted Complexity out. They were able to take care of Complexity before finally rotating here to the south side when that circle was closing originally. And to their north is Sentinels, who are also trying to split their attention onto TSM, as well as Space Station, who are playing on their south.
Space Station also have controlled a lot of area. They are bowling low, however, and Brex has very little cover to play with. Even playing with fire in the window. Everybody dropping off of low ground now will put teams like Moist in a difficult spot, but they've taken a little bit of ground ahead of EEC. The Thermite is doing work. Moist could find 3 KP before it's all said and done.
Oh, once he drops down here, boys, the Thermite was able to clean up so much off of that Thermite pressure alone when that circle was forced to close in here too. RKN gets taken out, so do the rest of Sentinels. And in this building alone that Moist is in right here, TSM and Space Station are sharing that space while nobody's contesting C9 from the south.
C9 are chilling. Naughty's tossing arc stars. It is all good from C9's perspective because they don't have to fight for this building. Moist finally get to take a look back at them, but cannot afford to focus on sieging C9, who have a caustic on top of all of this. Good nade, but it's not going to find purchase onto Sorcerer or Chaotic. The next zone now promises even more carnage, Vicky. And I'll say it, Moist are not in a terrible spot to take advantage of this, but the problem is the ring. It's pulling again towards C9.
Oh no, and with that scan, they know that there's 2 knocked, and that's gonna be the green light for Space Station to immediately fully send it onto Hal. He's playing up the knockdown shields in front of him between Verholz and Reps, and C9 looking at all of this, know that they're not gonna be giving up this space. They're gonna be staying here, settled pretty, while watching the rest of the lobby fight out right in front of them. Our last 4 remaining squads between Moist, Space Station, and the solo that is TSM being Hal, and then C9 to the south. They see TSM has been eliminated, and they're not gonna be giving up more of this space as they try to swing over to the side.
There's very little space for these teams to play, but a bit of a rock outcropping right next to these buildings will provide the only temporary safety. You're really wishing you had a catalyst right around now, but nobody's got that particular benefit with DSG having been eliminated. It's all going to come down to Bangalore smokes for temporary cover and for control of the open space. Bloodhound ults are going to come at a premium, and SSG are not taking the gamble, instead pushing further and closer to Moist. Ultimately, pushing these teams together is just going to result in one of them going down. SSG rockets forward onto C9. How are they going to come out ahead of this, Vicky?
Especially with slow heals too. Look at Sino and Frex falling incredibly low. Phony now being incredibly one-shot. Space Station get eliminated. It is Moist now versus C9. A game that C9 desperately needed. And MT's looking out for blood. He climbs up above. He tries to take a different angle. They need some help though. MT and Guild are low. But Waltzy is clearing the lobby. He finds 2 and he wipes up the entirety of C9 by himself. Moist take game number 3.
What a gorgeous play from Moist. Very few teams are able to play in the open ground with that level of expertise, taking out SSG, rotating behind them, while at the same time keeping C9 in place to avoid a third party. It is a rare skill set, but one that is really necessary as we approach the time where we put the best Apex Legends in the world to the test. This is, while we know Moist are going to the playoffs, their last hurrah in North America before they have to face off in an even higher stakes, higher skilled lobby than you could imagine anywhere else in the world.
It's just crazy too, because I mean, we know that they're usually the squads that always come out on top with more of these southern POIs that pull towards Echo HQ, Devastated Coast. Of course, considering the fact that they have that POI advantage, but as dominating as it was and how chaotic that northern side of that final circle were, to make that rotate, even on top of the high ground, on top of that levitating box cart, or rather that building, whatever you want to call it, it's just impressive to see that they were able to drop down and still find space to coexist with the squads that have found their space inside of these buildings. And a team that desperately needed that top 3 was C9, because before that game, I believe they were sitting in 16th overall, and they're one of the teams in that cusp, in that border, just threatening to potentially not make it into land.
I like what they're cooking, but we didn't really see them make it to end game because they got caught up in this kerfuffle coming from the north side. It's an unfortunate end that comes to a lot of teams, but I think that if you're going to be playing high ground like that, where not a lot of zones end, you do need to be a bit more proactive about getting into the ring.
Well, look, we've got one more game on Swordpoint before we make the transition onto World's Edge. That's going to be coming to you at the other side of this break. Don't go anywhere.
Welcome back, everyone, to the North American Regional Finals, where we are about to move into, and I know it sounds odd, Zephyr, Game 4 of the Regional Finals on Stormpoint.
Obviously, we come off the hot end of a lovely win there from Moist that, after their previous results, now thrust them so much closer to the top. Something that arguably they don't need, but it is definitely worrisome for so many of our other rosters out there. With Moist taking some of these higher positions away, that's points that won't be on the board for some of those lower end teams that absolutely need them.
And I will say, Zephyr, that when we're looking at teams like Dark Zero and Moist who are winning games, I do think that while they may not need the points today, that these wins mean quite a bit to them, given how important a match point victory is. Very few opportunities to practice match point, and so the more games that you're able to win in a format like this, the more competitive you're able to make it, the better you're looking the next time you play match point, which will be in the finals of playoffs.
And never forget, at the end of the day, this is the region that we're sending the majority of teams to those playoffs in Los Angeles. So the majority of the competition that you'll be facing off against exists here and now. It won't be identical, but it's the best bet for most of these rosters, but they've still got to make their way there.
That they do, and with our second game of Stormpoint starting today, let's see how differently things go. When we move over towards places like Devastated Coast, you do get very finicky end games, where in this particular case, early positioning and landing close by was really rewarded. In future games, we're likely going to see that dynamic shift as many different areas of Stormpoint play out in drastically different ways. Say, Cedo as an excellent example, as all of our players drop in for the second game. This time, we did go on a little bit more of a southeast to northwest sort of route with our dropship, which means that teams like Eternal EC and Moist do start the game a little bit earlier than, say, Fury and Disguised, who land over by Wall and Northpad.
Something that we actually haven't gotten really a big chance to talk about, especially after seeing what was, or at least what felt like, such a zone-oriented game, especially due to the fact that it's the chaos that is wrought within Devastated Coast, is the fact that we are still well within that edge-oriented meta that benefits some of those teams taking their time to work their way into zone, find the resources to boot, and then fight for some of those good positions when we start to talk about that zone 3-4 transition.
And normally when you're playing, say, spots like Devastated, Echo, Coastal, you do have an opportunity to make use of tridents if you would like to. Perfect example here. Thank you, Ape Gang. And pick up a few of the Evo caches that may otherwise lie around here. They are, unfortunately, Ape Gang, caught in a battle over tridents with 9 lives, which is going to happen when you're landing over by Millage and you've got a squad landing Cenote. But it is the trident that is a really valuable resource when we're on Stormpoint, because of the ability that it takes to, or that it brings to get you around, to get you into more complex spots on the map than you might otherwise be able to access with such speed.
Well, it's going to be one that teams like Ape Gang and maybe even Optic over there on the edge of Down Beast are going to have to consider when we talk about a zone like this. Not quite as deep towards that southeastern side like last time around, but still a distance of a rotation necessary for most of the rosters out there towards our west. This one, though, leaving a lot more of the playable space, more directly, of course, towards Echo HQ, where we sometimes can see this zone end, but of course, a lot of the transition points and the chaos that can be brought alongside teams working their way through Pylon.
Teams who've gotten a lot of practice rotating in should have a lot of practice fighting Legacy, but Sentinels get caught off guard. And now, without Zenile, it's RKN and Luda who are left on white shields to survive, perhaps fight another day, but it isn't looking good for them, Zephyr, as no support legend for this squad, and a very zone-oriented team means that they've now been denied the rotation and the ability to make an impact on other squads with a full 3-man roster.
This is something that we've been waiting, at least for Legacy, in terms of them rearing their head in our regional final. I know they're one of the teams that are a little bit more secure, but are still a bit further down when we talk about those overall standings regarding where they currently rest at the edge of these 3 games. Currently 12th with only 13 points. they don't have completely enough points to feel dominantly safe. And like you said, it's that additional practice that goes alongside.
Fun to see Oxygen setting up down here. It's a significantly different play than what we're going to be seeing the majority of squads go for, where Oxygen are playing for a specific end zone when they move down towards the south like this. Sitting when you're not sure where the zone is going to go way outside of it is going to be really punishing, potentially, if you get the zone prediction wrong. Unfortunately for Sentinels, they are the ones who are punished the most for underestimating Legacy once and then for sticking around.
For those of you who are Sentinel fans going into today, this is one of those rosters that needs to not only perform well, but at their very best. Coming into this with only 51 points in the overall, they pretty much have to win today. So definitely daunting to see them already down and out. For Dark Zero, the complete opposite story.
Moving right through where Legacy just were as well as a very risky maneuver. We've seen it already not play out too well, and Legacy hold the high ground immaculately, pushing Dark Zero back into the spider caves from whence they came, and they get a trident for their trouble. You can't write this, Zephyr.
I can't believe a team like Legacy is allowed to just get away with so much. We talk about the early game rotation, diving down to low, taking out Sentinels, and then stealing this one away here. It's something that will hopefully benefit them as we get towards that late game. But for teams that need to find their way to late game, 8-gang struggle here in the midst of Oxygen.
Unfortunately for them, after losing one, 8-gang are getting aped, and they've got to retreat fully lest they fall to Oxygen here. And now out in the open, things are not looking too good, and the double AR loadout almost takes them down. Zane's got to be a bit careful with how wide we swing this, but in a 3 versus 2, you can kind of throw caution to the wind. Oxygen should be picking up another kill momentarily, and it'll mean they've got an additional 2 points to herald them into the further zones. They do have another squad coming up on them, though. Have they predicted? Are they ready for Xset?
Even if they take something like this evac, it can be heavily punished here. But the trigger is pulled just a little too early. Obviously, you won't see that rotation come through furthermore for Oxygen, but had we potentially seen maybe a little bit more of a delay of action, that could have been a free knock for Xset. But still, a free evac is, I'll still say, a benefit.
This is a weird day of Apex Legends, Zephyr. We've seen Dark Zero roll up to Legacy and deliver them a trident, and now we've seen Oxygen try and evac away from Xset and then hand them a jump tower. Not very often that we get to see teams taking resources away like this, but in the midst of all of this fighting, that's almost a byproduct of a very aggressive game that we've gotten so far. Many teams that are trying to rotate into a very familiar Echo HQ zone are getting caught out because I dare say they're letting their guards down a bit too much.
This can come through definitely from the changes alongside the edge play, but Dia, you can at least explain to us where maybe some of those teams exist.
Yeah, one of the fascinating things we talked about Oxygen earlier on about this zone is that you're, as Oxygen say, hoping that you've got an end game over here. And there are a couple end zones that this can be. With this next zone showing us, there aren't quite as many. There's, of course, everything that's happening over here. I'm not even going to circle it because it'd just be more clutter on the map. But where everyone is, yeah, that's one place that the zone can end. Legacy are playing for an interesting one that actually has won them multiple games over in champs and at playoffs. End zones like this will provide for teams like Oxygen that then get to approach from a place where no one else is. 9 Lives who can take control of this ridge line. And any team like Optic, who managed to be the last one in Pylon, can stick around for placement points and get a free rotate with an evac or Valkyrie into wherever the end zone is.
This is something that teams, at least for those still kind of fighting their way inside, they've got a bit of a gatekeeper and a monster of one at that to potentially stop them from getting towards the Echo if it is to garner itself there. We saw Dark Zero try, and they made for rotation. For TSM, though, they're in the midst of pushing into, well, positions galore. Native already down, I believe, 2 coming into the action here, and now just cleaning up the remnants of this IMC armory. A free position for their next move in.
And Zephyr, you heard us talking about this last game, but the IMC armories, they're not in the glorious state they used to be in, where you could sit there and bunker up until the late game. They've got so many points of access now that an IMC armory is a stopgap for where your next rotation will take you. The native, unfortunately, get caught out before that next move happens. Dark Zero have now sat themselves right next to their Aussie buddies, as over in Echo HQ, they will be sharing space inherently with Moist. The zone, however, not in a great spot for Dark Zero, as you and I both know that ultimately we're pulling a little further away from the big Echo HQ building and at least towards the gravity cannon in some capacity.
Dark Zero here, after losing out what could have been great positionings, forced to contest for the slow ground, which optimally isn't the worst. You still have survival position, but when we talk about that climb up going into the late game, it is met with the fervor of so many of these exterior teams having such great angles.
Doesn't look like Ape Gang fared too well after they were unfortunately pushed back by Oxygen, but 9 Lives are the beneficiaries with yet another Trident. We'll see how they make use of it. Perhaps it's another express delivery into the hands of Legacy, as 9 Lives will be approaching from that side of the ring. Dark Zero still bunkered up, and everybody holds their breath for the next zone. We've got about a minute till this ring finishes closing, Zephyr, but at such a time, there will be a lot of teams in Echo HQ that have to reevaluate their current positioning as it stands for the late game and likely fight each other in order to hold what very few buildings remain in the POI.
Now, when we talk about buildings in POIs here, Disguised have no skin in the game whatsoever, still within that lagoon area, taking advantage of a lot of that slowing rotate and the assist in terms of building those resources that we discussed earlier. It's one of the few teams that are currently sitting on triple reds, and the hope now is, of course, finding that further transition to see how a team can fight and slowly work their way in. A great example of that being Moist from last game. They had some of the first pickings to these early zones going into game 3, but ultimately had to transition back into where our zone was finishing and were able to do so.
9 Lives keep their eyes out on Oxygen. Still plenty of time for Oxygen to rotate, give it a nice evac. But the ring, going to be the thing that ultimately draws these two squads together. 9 Lives and Oxygen both will have to combine forces in an odd way over by the gravity cannon, with Optic, Furia, LG, and Disguised all making the same route in. Remember, there is the option to stick by the pylon side for this next ring and pull a late evac or Valgolt into the zone. But for that, you've got to be alone, and Furia is far from it, facing off against LG.
First Suite already down here and now completely knocked out. Edges upon the ring for Furia. This is free pickings in the 2v for Funk, though. Great coverage in terms of finding those cracks. This is the minor delays that they might need to find survivability, but still a lack of an answer for how they need to transition to this next zone. Even if they do get to follow up behind Furia here, we're talking about 30 seconds for them to find what is hopefully something of not even just a nice edge position. That's already taken. They need to fight for even something like that.
Looking at how Furia are playing this, it's pretty clear Furia are a duo as well. These two teams that are facing off against each other don't actually have more firepower one way or the other. With the banner recovery of Sweet, it's nice that LG get to rotate away, but Furia are not in a better position as a result. They're going to have to move towards the south, rotate through where we last saw 9 Lives positioned, and it may very well be the end of both teams suffer.
This is a struggle even for this team right here, TSM. No side of that hill is available for play going into that next zone. Could potentially be a larger evac or major rotation to save them going into the future here. But ultimately, if they are to walk in directly to Complexity, it'll be met with potential punishment. For now, though, you see that Wraith, it means only one thing.
The single shot from dropped wasn't quite enough, not connecting, and it has forced Optic to play off of the low ground. They do have to fight Disguised for this height at some point, but it doesn't need to be now. TSM, however, their agenda has certainly been pushed to the front, as a Valk ult right on top of the gravity cannon gives them an uncontested landing, but one that can be sieged from multiple angles. I think they spot one just as they land. It's Oxygen starting to encroach on TSM.
for Optic here outside of Pylon. They need to defend the edges that be if they want to transition in late, and it's more than clean for their elimination of 9 lies out here on the edge. And on top of that, they secure a building that defends them from the damage that could be going alongside remaining members. Losty, and of course out there disguised as well. But Furia, even as a duo, continues to ream and beam, lay down pressure here that you might see them take advantage more than you'd expect.
And now that Furia control the ridgeline, they're in an odd spot. Taking the siege onto Optic, their backs are vulnerable, and Furia do not have the manpower to watch every angle. As Madness looks down, Oxygen Esports are going to be watching from behind, and we've still got the LG disguised fight happening here, with neither team ultimately benefiting from this, both desperately needing a relocate. Sweet's just gotten back into the game, so LG are 3 strong, but they aren't on red shield strong.
Notably for Disguised, even if they don't clean things up here shortly, they have the double evacs available for a larger rotation ahead if they are to drop down, well, all but similarly to what we saw out of TSM. But for that feed up there, Dark Zero eliminated by Samsung early here. That's a huge monster you no longer have to fight with.
Graber down. Not a good look for Optic as they lose 1. It is on a contest for the Ridge, and it is against a duo. If Optic can't clutch it now, I dare say that their chances at this game, at the series, go pretty low. DSG rotate up ahead of Luminosity. Can third party fight on height, but instead are going to rotate right into zone with Luminosity following immediately behind them. It is a scramble to get into the ring, and there are very few places that you can really land and make it work. LG zoom past Disguise onto the low ground with absolutely no cover from height to work with, but they aren't focused by Disguise, who have to balance both sides of the equation. Instead, somehow they make their way to relative safety inside of Echo HQ and are now fighting a totally different squad. Oxygen even evacing over all this, somehow have safety.
Themself and everyone else, though, who has come in late here are in terrible angles with notable potential shots that can come through from all sides here. Luminosity just barely getting themselves back up in recovery, now looking below and finding out that this building is more vacant than they expected here. Playing on the outskirts have left them safe for now. Optic themselves and many others like Oxygen look for the corners that be, but this time around find the damage that comes along with it.
Devo has not been working for Optic. That's 2 clips now that we have seen almost used as a zoning tool, keeping people from swinging an angle, knowing that you're walking into a devotion. It is going to allow Optic to reset miraculously. Noct may even be able to stick a res. No gold knockdowns as it appears, because they haven't immediately gone for this. SSG are looking at it. E8 have to approach on this. I'll be honest, Zephyr, the low ground is now looking like a peaceful place. As Eternal go down, E8 will follow, and that is just the first 2 of many squads that can participate in a low ground engagement.
For Complexity, they're the 14 moving in after that engagement. It's Luminosity down the low ground who gets pushed by the remnants of E8, gets wiped out. E8 finds success against the third party, against EEC, before finally being wiped out by Complexity in the end. But we still subsist with 10 total squads remaining, as we'll choke out the entirety of Echo here and force everyone to rotate down south. You can already see these rotations, Optic right behind one another.
Grabber shots again, not connecting, not giving Optic the necessary openers to find good fights, good kills that they desperately need. Right now, only 4 kills so far. While it is good, is not enough with the placement that Optic currently have to contest a team like C9 who have yet to go down. Dropped. Doesn't get hit by the rockets. However, this is them up against DSG once again, and it's going to be a double swing from Dropped and Skittles to try and take down one. Complexity are the ones that ultimately fall there, missing out on Kimchi and Lou. 1 member left, Monsoon, who drops down and immediately gets melted by Optic, but trades one out in the meantime. Full send from DSG onto the weekend squad means that we lose another, and TSM swing on that to make it a 4th party for the win.
Now down to our 7, down below the remnants of SSG here, potentially the next targets ahead of TSM. A Mozam in the hands available here, continuing to subsist off of some of the points that we saw from our initial games. As we look at the other side, the Southern Height, once again held by a notable C9. They were so close to picking up a win in our last game. Can they pull off where they had failed?
A lot of spots that could potentially win you the game, but I'll be honest, right below TSM, not exactly one of them. TSM are doing a lot of work taking out just a few members of SSG. Moist will fall first. TSM control part of the high ground, now shooting onto Legacy, who absolutely, Zephyr, have one of the best spots in zone. This next ring is going to pull almost immediately next door to Legacy. It'll be a fight between TSM, XSET, and C9 as to who can live the longest to contest Legacy's position.
I really like this from TSM here, playing off of the very rare pickup of the Valk coming in clutch here to give Verholst the option to find those angles. But with that comes the respect that you see ever so similarly from the likes of a team like C9. Their position going to last a little bit longer than when we talk about the edges out there towards the west, but they have the majority of the stack to contest with, notably that Zip right there, potentially the place that they'll have to look first against XSET.
Now, C9 predicted the zone really well, but 2 of their members are on blues. They do not have the power spikes, really, of late game to be taking a full-on 3v3 at XSET. Well, they just don't have the position to be sitting there. I'm going to be real with you right now. XSET are a foregone conclusion as they get wiped off the map, and it's now TSM and C9 that hold the high ground. TSM's Evo shields are so much scarier as Imperial Hal takes onto the forefront. Legacy are just watching this happen, waiting for their chance to third party off of the low ground because the zone is coming to them.
It's a perfect setup as the clean BOI comes into play as TSM are able to clutch up a reps caught out in front of them. Goes for the knock, but I like the switch of an angle, starting to look more towards Legacy, forcing C9 to maybe push into them instead.
C9 swing Legacy, but they do not get a knock instead. Now they've overcommitted onto that side. Naughty's got no health. TSM have all the time in the world, and C9 go down as a duo with the high ground. TSM can still do nothing against Legacy, or is Hal going to clutch it? It's 1v1. Hal's got no shields, but a shield swap comes in. Jaguares has the health advantage. Hal's got to drop and take the fight, but Jaguares with the havoc from behind. The caustic barrel takes the win.
With no time to heal it up in the last moments, even with a clutch shield swap in a defense that sits Legacy down to a solo, they're far more healthy to pick up the 1v1 as TSM come down from above.
The plot armor was almost too thick, Zephyr. It was very nearly too much for Legacy, but the great spot that they had earlier and good control of the low ground do lead Legacy well. It's an odd endgame to watch play out, though, seeing how C9 ended up swinging partially onto Legacy and how the favor was then returned onto them by TSM. Felt like a lot of people overplaying their hands.
Yeah, we talk about even what was Legacy there at the end. They were struggling in their own right. I don't know if you caught it, but there was a knock on the Azel in the midst of all of that. They had to stick that first, even before what was their closer push onto Cloud9, where even if one of them had gone down, we could have been potentially talking about a very different winner coming out of that last game.
What we are talking about, weirdly again, Zephyr, is how well zone or teams that landed near to the end zone did once again. C9 really notable because they clearly did not get a lot of Evo shields, caches, whatever it may be, even damage to level themselves up past the point of blue shields. I do think that we have to talk about how the south side of Stormpoint is so much more clearly zone favored than when we go over up towards North Pad or Cascade.
Right. And it's something that, as you see there, creates the discrepancies that we see in terms of things like that Evo difference, where TSM still reigns supreme with the triple red, with even teams like, even though we don't see them make it much further, disguised, all but the same, coming in with some of those similar resources. Things that, depending on how good you are at closing the gap in finding success in those disadvantageous fights, transition the resources over here. Legacy definitely being one of those teams to pick up the successes of some of those advantages.
And, you know, we did have quite a bit of activity from teams that rotated in pretty late as well. I'm thinking specifically about Optic, and I can't wait to see where they ended up on the scoreboards, because Legacy, for all that they participated in some early game fights, also had a nice end game position. Optic did not, moving out of Pylon. So let's take a look at the and we'll see how it plays out when we come back to World's Edge in just a few minutes.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Oh boy, it has been exciting to say the least to kick off the action, and we've got a few words that, when put together, form a very dangerous sentence that many of these pros are aware of, Vicky, and that is TSM is on match point.
It's a tale as old as time, but this team always manages to pull off some miracle all the time, but it's about the consistency.
It was special, but it also has given us a little bit of an awareness around just the Havoc and how good that thing is, especially when you get to pre-fire, when Hal's dropping down, has to land and turn around and start fighting. Yeah, that Havoc's going to pretty much win that one every time.
Listen, Rain Day, back in my day, the Havoc didn't even have wind up. Oh man,
what day was that, man? I mean, wow.
I think that must have been either end of season 4 or beginning of or season 5 in general, because that was around the time that I started playing Apex Legends, and the Havoc was a problem. And I remember leading up to that, the best way to try to situate that problem was the turbocharger. But with the shift of gun compositions now, with now the Digi not being on the SMG, making SMGs harder to handle with the recoil, specifically the hip fire. When you take a look at like the R9 car, the Havoc is just so strong right now in the gun meta. Yes, you get to put the Digi on the Mosem and RE, which is what you've been saying so far in some of these games that we've been laughing about, but it works. It does the damage, and aside from that, the Havoc, you could put it 3 times on that weapon and you could beam from far away. Heck, even thinking about the time that the Havoc used to be able to take the select fire, something that
I was gonna
really
say.
didn't have to say any use of just utility for that. But I'm sure you remember that, Rain Day.
I was going to say, back in my day, the Havoc was hit scan and the select fire. Remember that one? I still, you know, I miss it, but that is gone the way of the charge rifle as well. We don't really have any of those hit scan pressure moments anymore, but they were fun while they lasted, very dominant while they lasted. And, you know, the Havoc, when you get it, as we get ready to get back into the game here, we just have a bit of a reset from the players. So we'll get back in as soon as possible. Vicky, you do bring up a great point about how the meta has shifted. We're not used to not seeing, you know, the CAR, the R99, all of these weapons really that dominate in that close range SMG, especially when you would imagine in a Bangalore kind of occlusion meta that we've seen, not be at the forefront. But alas, that is what has happened. And ARs have slowly but surely, in the case of the Havoc, quite quickly become the dominant choice for many players. And it doesn't mean that we still won't see things like a CAR occasionally. We'll see some 301 here and there. Flatlines stayed pretty relevant, as well as things like Prowlers. But it is really said no more digi threat on these SMGs. So go shotguns, go pistols like RE45s, or start working with the bigger weapons if you want that type of range and to be impactful. And the players seem to have made their choice there.
And a weapon that will never, or a weapon archetype rather, that would never be able to cycle out of the meta, especially with the Evil Shield changes, are those long range guns. Talking about the 30-30, you're talking about different snipers, and it's definitely been prevalent because now with Evil Harvesters, the wildlife in Apex Legends, if you move over to Storm Point, so many different opportunities with the bins to be able to get that Evil Shield charge. Something else is poking from afar has now kind of changed up the game. Yes, we've seen it before, but it adds emphasis now to the teams that want to situate themselves in final circle positioning from the very beginning of the game. They're not only denying themselves loot, but they're denying themselves the opportunity to level up those Evil Shields and to be able to take advantage of the perk system that has been presented in Season 20.
It's a great opportunity, I think, to shift into Season 20 and this patch obviously being played on the first iteration of it. And one of the major elements that, you know, we're seeing, if you really look at Apex Legends, Vicky, it's the changes that are coming in at the time of this recording tomorrow. Bangalore has had some significant shifts and some big choices made to where you're no longer going to be able to get that ultimate cooldown in the same rushed way. And they've increased the actual ultimate from where it is as well. How do you feel just originally on that element, and also some of the smoke changes, which we can bring up after that, of just what they've done with Bangalore and the decision to say, we don't need you to necessarily be a part of, you know, the meta, at least the way that you have been so far in Season 20?
Listen, all I'm gonna say is hasta la vista, Bangalore. It was nice knowing you.
Is it that true?
No, you know, I think it's gonna be interesting to see what we have as a makeshift problem to what some of these teams may have used Bangalore as a crutch. I feel like Bangalore being that mainstay legend within the compositions that we've witnessed in all different regions of Pro League comes into question of what we need to change about Bangalore without completely gutting her, because I feel like this was the legend that you used when you had to make your safe rotates. That's really what the purpose of, between the smokes and then obviously using the ult, so that way you could get certain teams out of different positionings that you wanted to fight for, creating that space that even Caustic could actually take with his Nox grenade, something another legend that's actually getting a change there too. But I think more so what these changes come into question is which legend is going to take that place of rotating. We love Wraith, but I don't believe that her kit provides enough to be able to have those safe rotates. Man, I would even love to see maybe in a different universe Ashe being called into question, you know? So many different legends that could have better rotates for certain team compositions would be fantastic, because I'm all for different legend diversity.
Well, specifically losing out Rolling Thunder, going from 4 minutes to 4.5, and also the smoke launcher no longer dealing damage and decreasing the duration from 18 seconds to 11 seconds has given her a bit of a different shift. They've also buffed the heal rate on Refuge, which people decided not to use. It's now 3.5 HP per second over 3, so you're looking at a, you know, what, 15%, 20% increase there. But is it going to be enough? Also, one of the things we noticed was Cover Me was actually working a little bit better than intended, and that is one of the things they have fixed. It's no longer going to track where that player is while they're pinging you, shooting in the smoke. However, we'll show you where they first were. But another legend that I want to bring up, Vicky, this legend, when I saw this change, I got a little sad. I'm not going to lie. And I love it because I think Lifeline is so rarely seen in our high-level pro league that I looked at it and thought, what Aurora has done has really impacted the game. And you can see it right here with the ability to get gift wrapped. That next ult is a supply drop. That will be removed. That was a huge part of rushing and getting to that position of having a Kraber, a wingman, a bow check bow. And what they're trading that for, Vicky, is consistency. You are now going to spawn with golden gear, an Evo cache, gold knockdown shield, gold backpack. You will be getting one of those. So how do you feel, not just with that gift wrap changing, but also her tactical, which means you can actually reduce the cooldown of that tactical, was 40 seconds down to 25. It lasts the entire duration of the heal. So essentially you can have consistent all-time heals with Lifeline. How are your thoughts on those changes as we get ready to think about this and go into the game?
Having Duck with you at all times, I'm all for it. I mean, give Duck an RE45. We'll see the magic really happen. But no, honestly, I actually, to get your hopes up, I think gift wrap coming out and introducing the gold-plated new perk where you'll always be guaranteed a gold knockdown shield is absolute game changer. I still think Lifeline is going to be incredibly strong. I get the change. There was too many power weapons out on the field for everyone to use, and that was just giving too much an advantage, especially in a lobby like this one with the player skill level in the direction that it's going in and the changes of what Season 20 has brought. It's interesting because I love how you mentioned Aurora, our #1 EMEA team for a reason, bringing the Lifeline out, but something that is lacking within our North American region. So it's that diversity where I'm glad that they gut the character. They brought in something different that would still elevate her play style, and that means that you don't have to automatically land in a POI like Trials. So it allows more creativity, I feel, with the Lifeline and different rotates. And since we aren't going to be seeing the Lifeline out here for NA, what we will be seeing, though, is that 50-50 go down between ApeGan and XSET. Let's get it started.
Let's get it started indeed. They didn't show 9 lives, though, so just to shout out, they were playing a little bit of Lifeline in that last game. I wonder if they'll stick with it here. But great points and great discussion as we head into it. If you're watching right now, that will be available to play. And check out those changes. Obviously, these pros, though, they don't want anything to change, especially if you are in the position of TSM, who have found themselves at the very top of the leaderboards yet again. But inside, where Fragment is, we all know if you play it, very difficult spot to be. Not a lot of loot as well. The disparity between that and some of the other areas, plus the size of it and the central location of the map has made it difficult. And yet XSET is going to have to still share this space with ApeGang, Vicky. It's not ideal, but sometimes if you're going to get the job done, you got to go through some tough circumstances to get there.
Talk about tough. I mean, it's not even technically ApeGang, too. You have to imagine the easy rotate for Optic Gaming, who are on their other side by Fragment East. As we tune into TSM, nice. We're able to get that drone out of the sky to pick up a gold helmet. You always love to see that because you'll be able to have those scans online even faster. And we get to take a look at where this circle is going to be pulling. We had all those southern zones over by Storm Point. Well, time to take a trip over by Climatizer here on World's Edge. It's going to allow teams like Space Station to already have that POI advantage. They even have the ring console, so they knew that this is where that circle would be pulling. And teams like Optic not wasting any time contesting Monument or Fragment East, already going in for the rotate. And XA had gotten ahead of ApeGang and Optic in that.
Obviously, the strength of rotating early is that position, but sometimes these pulls have been devastating, especially when you overcommit for some of these teams. It's meant that even Dark Zero in good positions have not been able to pull out those wins in the same way that, you know, their spot might have indicated, because you can never fully know, especially at this point. So it's these late rotate teams who are very consistent with it, and not Complexity, but DSGs, the Furias, even TSM's, LGs at this point. Going to see if they continue to see if that's working for them at the start of this, as we follow along with Complexity and Dropped on Optic and the rest of his team. Skittlecakes and Noct. They've been trying to find a resurgence here, Vicky. They certainly need it, but it's going to be one of those things where is it enough today?
It's going to be incredibly tough unless Oxygen just completely fumble the bag here. It's a lot on the line, but you hate to rely on the downfall of other teams here to put your team on top. It's just way too risky. As we look at teams like Complexity with their rotate playing on the low ground of the tunnel. Going to be playing more so on the edge, because we can expect the circle to continuously pull more so to the north, unless it pulls by the rock side of Overlook on the southeastern side. But even more teams with their slow rotate, talking about 9 lives who are leaving Grandma's house. LGR right behind them.
Enemy over there.
And this is one of the squads that coming out of the countdown side here by this choke. They're taking some shots at 9 lives, but Sweet missing out on some of these Hemlock shots, completely getting burned for it. But Funk coming in with the bow check, getting that knock is going to open things up here for LG to move in.
Also a notable knock with the Sentinel right above as well. I think this is just another showcase of what the conversation was about. Early care package weapons with blue shields. It is definitely a recipe for disaster for the team you're fighting against. And of course, that means that LG going to take advantage of that as best as they can, swinging with 70 from across the way. Sweet getting up on top. Hemlock in the car, as they'll be content to just work on getting their purples, show some presence here as 9 Lives look to back off.
Bullying them from even getting information too, because now LG is going to be able to get Grandma's House Survey Beacon, so they're going to be able to get that scan, some extra Evo charge. Teams like 8 Gang with the scan see a team that's already inside of the building right in front of them. Could be Space Station, considering they do land on that north side of Climatizer, but so many other teams that are in the area. Could actually be Optic that have already taken control over that rotate that we saw earlier, leaving quickly from Fragment. And now having to play off this low ground, but this is the type of circle, Rain Day, where you can expect a lot of teams to coexist in that final circle.
It absolutely is. There's a lot of places, a lot of layers to it as well. So sometimes it's a matter of the decisions of who ends up being on what staircase next to one another, because a team like this trying to hold down, it's got to have that caustic to just hold this space. It also, in an interesting way, is what Drop said, because you have a caustic and so many people have a caustic, it makes it a little bit less valuable. Consider a team like TSM, who's been running the Bangalore and the Bloodhound and the Valkyrie in that same position, rotating early. Now that they've switched onto the caustic, they'd be able to hold, but without that, it'd be very, very difficult to go up against 8 Gang in that zone and not just get pressured out and kind of egoed if they want to. So changes for World's Edge, knowing that this is very likely going to be the case. A lot more building heavy, a lot less long range shooting, and they've made the changes to prepare for that.
Oh, LG have found the space right underneath the building that 8 Gang was looking at originally. Caustic traps that were set up there now are going to be able to get deleted. But this is a great spot. We see a lot of teams usually exist here because with that crate in the middle, you can get out a line of sight of the squads that are on that bridge. But TSM have taken this fight versus Sentinels over by the outskirts of Overlook. No other team in the area could contest this. So this is a safe fight to take for now.
TSM up on top. Sentinels trying to get involved here. RKN in middle of the building, but look at the disparity. It's purples versus blue. That represents 75 extra health that TSM can burn through and still match up with Sentinels. So it's going to be an uphill battle for them in more ways than one. Hal, he did it again last game and clutched up a few to put him on match point. Right here, he's going to clutch up again. Doesn't even worry about the shield swap. Knows that Verholst on high and Reps as well inside the building will have his back. And TSM off to a great start yet again. 3 points, and they have cleared out a lot of space behind him. Furia, Moist, Disguise, Legacy, as we take a look at the map, as well as Dark Zero, the only teams outside of the zone behind them, but looking like there's so much other places that they can play on the north or western side of this ring that TSM have really done a good job of making sure no threats are going to be pushing up on them.
That was such a sick fight that TSM just took too versus Sentinels. Like, that was honestly so seamless with the way that they played that split positioning and the follow-ups for Hal forcing them to get out of position into Verholst's line of sight. That was chef's kiss there. And like you mentioned, Rain Day, they've cleared that angle of where that next circle is going to be pulling, completely looking at the other squads that have taken their time to rotate. Dark Zero also are going to be able to get that survey beacon by Grandma's House, a team that does like to take their time to get into the circle. Meanwhile, over by Fragment, the party's still going. It's going to be Furia versus Moist here.
Nice shots for the G7 as well. Great choice outside of the 30-30 for options here. It's going to do fast work, especially if you can get a headshot. And Moist, of course, one of our top 2 teams, trying to see if they can push it to #1 after this. Let's listen in on how they make their move from Fragment.
It doesn't make sense for that not to be Legacy behind us, MT. C9 shouldn't be that slow, no?
Yeah, I don't know. Did I see a shot southwest?
Evacing here.
What's this other team northwest doing?
Monument, I don't see anyone. They're back here now.
They're over heavy. Okay, I'm smoking.
Okay. We might get held on this zone. No, there's no one on the hill.
Right, yeah, we should just walk it up to here.
Going?
We could hit ring cons on it up for it, but
I'm trying to just study the map to see where people are right now.
There's one team Overlook.
Well, Moist, actually, smart call there. C9 was well rotated, as they were pointing out. It was Legacy who have made their move and found themselves in the zone, but Moist, they just want to play it safe, Vicky, and that might be the right call for now. A team that can't play it safe, though, DSG versus Furia. This is a fight that is going to happen.
And DSG being the only team to still rock that Wraith here too, so that's going to be a notice for Furia to know exactly who they're dealing with here. The Phase had been used earlier too, as you could hear that being used right behind Design. We do have that slight high ground advantage here though, but Disguise have the natural rock form to use that to get out of their line of sight. Meanwhile, another fight happening on the northern side of Epicenter. Uphill, it's gonna be Dark Zero trying to take control over this building. That is gonna be 9 Lives that have already situated themselves there. And on behind 9 Lives, it's gonna be Legacy. So whichever of these teams try to actually fully commit first will get inevitably third-partied by Legacy on the other side of that building.
Fighting first sometimes just is a death sentence, and it may not be immediate, but the cascading elements of that fight usually have dire consequences. So in this situation, Furia and DSG realizing maybe it's just better that we just make sure they know not to take our space here, not to do anything crazy. We still got a lot of ways to go in this zone. 2 of our latest rotating teams hasn't worked out incredibly well for Furia so far today. They're at 6 points overall as we get a big landscape overview, Vicky, of where this zone is going to end up.
It is pulling towards the outskirts of Climatizer, and look who called it best. The team who not only lands in Climatizer, but who had access to that rain beacon for quite some time, Space Station. But it looks like this fight has finally begun here. It's going to be Disguise, Design, and Timmy falling incredibly low, but Enemy finding I'm Madness first. That's going to be Disguise having the advantage before trading out Timmy here. And Timmy looked like he did have the gold knock too, so they can't get him back up just yet, and Design having to play this safe while Enemy heals up with the shield bat.
They did lose Madness though, so can they get him back is the question. Just trying to throw some nades. Maybe they can bait it out a little bit, but just gonna play the shield most likely. Enemy and Design, they've got more than enough damage. And let's not forget about going into the Void, one of the only immunity frames in all of Apex Legends. We rarely get to see it, but Design has said, here, let me show you. Keon with a big slide and the alternator, and it's his Watson as well, who stays alive and takes down DSG. But as I mentioned, the cascading effects, who hears it? Well, Moist Esports as well. And that is it for Furia. Those 2 teams signed their own death warrants.
Feasting on the death boxes. Perfect timing as they waited in silence for the third party. And now they get to profit on their rotate with Epi being completely cleared. But again, Legacy was on that bridge on the other side of 9 Lives and their building. Dark Zero have taken control of that building next. And with TSM calling in an evac, of course, this is not Storm Point. No Valkyrie here. They're taking to the skies to maybe see if they can get into a better position. But their evac tower gets destroyed. That may have been Complexity that have been looking at them the entire time.
Is this my Rampart lobbies in normal pub games this week? I don't know, but those evac towers, obviously, you run the risk of people in that position being able to shoot them down. Now they've got to make the walk. It's a difficult one. Oriolis in front of them. And TSM, Hal decides to throw the Bloodhound. Oh, and it works! Sees Flesh and definitely wants to push this. Sees another bit as well, and an opening with the Prowler, but the Bangalore ultimate, while it's bought them a little bit of time, it doesn't seem like it has gone too much. It's risky to fight here, and oh, yes, it is. TSM going down. They will not claim match point here, at least in game number 5.
Oh, that was so risky. Yes, he left 2-1, but the cost to guess just does so much take damage. These aren't what the changes, and look who comes to clean up. It is Legacy sliding in and taking care of Dropped in Gaming. While they're playing off that low ground, though, teams like Moist Esports are going to be rotating off that high ground. You can see them on the other side of the bridge with Yanya being right below them, and Dark Zero now on the other side of Moist, going to be able to take control of over that bridge that Legacy had given up to Moist earlier.
No matter what, we're playing another game. That would have happened if TSM had won. However, that would have secured them the win, and we would have been playing one more game, game 6, for placement. That would determine who would ultimately qualify for LAN. Now, we're playing another game, but we may keep on going. That is match point in Apex Legends. We go till we have a winner, but we play at least 6. Oxygen Esports trying to climb up in the ranks as well. Aiden will find some damage around the box, but it's not enough. He gets taken down as well. As a player comes in from behind, it's C9 and Chaotic help to delay and now eliminate Oxygen as they were trying to make a push in zone, and C9 have cleared their backside, and the only team are up north.
Oh, they called him the bang ult here. Dark Zero forced to drop down from the high ground. It is 9 lives with the blue evil shields that have come in at the perfect time. They need to capitalize off of this, but they lose out on so much HP. No shields on all players of 9 lives right now as they're trying to reset, but they do get a knock onto Zero. Huge knock here. They finish him off, and Jen on the other side does trade here. Dynasty literally so low. He can't take care of the other member as Jen slides in, but he can't get res. It is Sykes, the last one alive for Dark Zero, but the circle is closing in behind his back.
Unbelievable. You can see how chaotic it is as this late rotation continues. Sykes trying to just hold on for DZ, but Moist are ahead. And they found a great spot up here on high. Wow. They can play this ridge, and they can see from above. And this is going to be so good for MT. Trying to pick up KP as well. They're on purples and looking to maybe get more. They get Yanya. That's a Legacy who's trying to move in as Jaguares and Legacy are fighting Complexity, and Monsoon is alive still. Moist actually helped them out there, and so Monsoon will be able to stabilize, it looks like. An angel from above, and Moist clears out Legacy for them.
They are above them, watching over them like a guardian angel here, but I don't know how they keep getting to these high ground spots and end game for free. Look at this. It's open range here for the Moist boys. They are absolutely looking to get wet here as they take care of Fun, but they're not going to drop down from the high ground. They're going to be holding this position. They finish off that knock player onto Fun. They get the scan. They get more information here too. They saw the scan from right below them here. With 11 squads left, they see how many squads are sharing that building. And by the way, it's over 5 to 6 teams in that building on the outskirts of Climatizer, all alone. Look at this, LG right below them, Optic as well. Complexity have now moved from the fence line, and they get taken out by Moist. Optic Gaming get eliminated here with 9 squads left.
You shall not pass. Moist trying to let it be known that we are up above. Don't even think about it. They're doing a good job of that. 44 to the dome. Gildersons. They say he's one of the best in the game. He certainly has proven it with the performance of Moist. They're trying to get on match point. If they do something crazy here, I think it's possible. They're second place right now with 40 points, Vicky. 9 squads left. That's easily enough. I think TSM were on 39 and did it with 7 squads left, getting just a second place. So if Moist keep this up, we could be looking at 2 teams on match point after this.
He got taken out in the middle of the gondola. That is so unlucky. Oh, he said bye. Where's my Uber driver taking me? Naughty may see him back in the lobby because he gets beamed immediately. Chaotic, sliding through the fence line, trying to escape the onslaught of damage from the circle. Literally one shot, he manages to slide through for now, but this Rain claims Cloud9, 7 squads left, and LG as a duo now after losing out on Funk, just trying to messily find their way into that next circle, but they're in the line of sight of squads like Space Station, Native Gaming, and even Ape Gang inside the truck.
My goodness, Gilderson's still alive. Moist still getting placement points. I'm not sure it's enough, though, especially with 8 Gang holding it out. Moist Esports goes down with 42 points. They will not be on match point. I don't think anyone else can do it at this time. And it's Elevate Gaming. Sweet, I believe, on LG, still alive. SSG as well as Native Gaming are your final 4 teams here in match number 5. Vicky, Elevate, they've got space now, but they're going to have to move. SSG seem like they're in the perfect position. But because they're in the middle as well, though they have the most time in zone, it almost guarantees that one of these teams is going to have to push them first.
Absolutely. Ooh, huge beams coming in. Phony trying to get that follow-up here, playing off the side of the tower. Native Gaming, the only team to bring out that Loba, by the way, have not denied themselves that loot. They have the Moby right in front of them for some extra makeshift cover, and Rambo's got the Kraber in hand with 4 bullets left.
Star in so many ways. When you think of Rambo, you think of the ability to show up and clutch. You think of the hair as well. We'll see if he's going to be celebrating after this. He's got a tough uphill battle here, but maybe he just might get a little lucky. And by that, I mean maybe Elevate say, we want to play for something. We want to take matters into our own hands, and we are going to be the ones to push SSG. That means now they've taken 0 damage and gotten 3 kills, and it's Native who are late to the party. Elevate. Vicky, they're looking like they're going to try to do it, but it's 1 kill already from Lux Ferdy. And Elevate Gaming, they're just trying to survive. Will Native have been able to push? Rambo grabs a second one, it's Sap. And Native Gaming will take the the win. Rambo and squad will clutch it up yet again.
Absolute levels for Native as they were sitting in 17th overall before that dub. We go next here, Rain Day, but I specifically love the timing to that fight, Rain Day. They booted off EA from the death boxes at their feet, so they were also able to go for Evil Shield swaps at the very start of that fight if it didn't swing in their favor, in their advantage.
I mean, they really caught SSG off tempo because they were dropping a mobile respawn beacon, I'm sure just to have a little bit of cover for when that zone came in. And it was just Elevate who decided to push at the perfect time. They probably got some great opening damage. And at that point, how fast that occurred, they were not able to get a shield battery off. There's no swaps to play from at that point. And so it was really just great timing from Elevate. But the way that Native came in too, I thought Elevate would have had an opportunity to just go back to back because they barely took any damage. They were all purples. Native just really clutched up. Luxferty with that opening kill, and of course Rambo following that second, and meant that they were able to go ahead and get the win.
Really helps to not really have a lot of cover. When you back away from that tower, it looked like Native had bullied them out of that cover and still were able to work with that tower to get out of their line of sight if need be, and then swing on opposite directions. You can't look like a chameleon. You can't cover your 6 and in front of you at the same time. You're completely caught EA off guard there.
They needed some Mirage invisibility, though I'm not noticing in the patch notes if we're going to see anything that's going to bring him quite yet into our meta. Maybe, that could be a good thing. But right now, it was great to also take a look at one of those stars in our league that, whether you were talking about his entrance and his electrifying performance, the hair, whatever it is, Rambo on Native has just been a player that has been in our headlines a lot for so many good things, for his excellent play, for storming up as a sub and making a splash in one of our lands, and then of course retiring and then finding another opportunity, playing with Dark Zero a little bit, going away from that, now finding his moment here with Native. I think this could be the start that they needed, especially in a tournament today that means a lot.
Yeah, in unison with Clean and Lux, 2 incredible players. This team is very well-rounded. It's about those comms. So the clutter in the comms sometimes could be too much. Slowing things down, though, really helps elevate this squad to a new level. Patiently waiting in the back out of all the chaos from that building and climatizer that we saw the majority of the remaining squads fall in that next circle. And that's why holding that back corner was fantastic. The first team, actually, to call out where that circle was going to be pulling was Space Station, but they were involved in the chaos at the very end when it came to trying to clean up some RP. And that allowed Native to actually wrap right behind them and take a much better position.
I honestly think SSG, that position is great to talk about because you think maybe they call it, maybe they're in their God spot, they get a top 3. Should they be happy about it? Well, I want to get some other people's opinions as well. You and I have chatted, but let's bring back Zephyr and let's introduce our guest for this halftime at this point. It's game 5. Usually that would mean that we'd have to go to 10 games, Jayhawk, but I don't know if we're actually going to be going that far. It's great to have you back on the broadcast, my friend.
It's great to be back, and you said it, with TSM already on match point, everybody's just wondering at what point do they potentially try to end it, because as we've seen, at every LAN in the past, they're always a threat.
Well, now that we have you for regional finals, I think it is great to talk about what indicates a winning moment, because we've only seen Dark Zero and TSM do it. To me, I always look at it as they've got this kind of clutch factor. They know how to make a game theirs versus ride the waves and kind of be passengers, so to speak. They kind of drive the game that they're going to win. What do you think is the biggest indicator or thing you look for a team who looks like they're going to win match point that day?
It's oftentimes the team that's willing to take a risk that can get them that win. I mean, you think back to the Split 1 playoffs, TSM with that Valkylt to the backside of zone, that's what set them up for the win there. Then Split 2 playoffs, DZ going to the low ground. Everyone seeing that at first is wondering, what is DZ doing? We're all used to people going to the high ground. That's where you want to be safe. DZ just sitting in the middle, understanding what it takes, a risky play to get the win. And then obviously at Champs, TSM with those 3 wins in a row, the various pushes they had to do on DSG and then Blackhand. It takes a team that is willing to take a risk, even if it means losing the game, if it can get them in a game-winning spot. And that's what TSM and DZ do best.
I like how you talk about taking risks, because if you take a look at the teams that are on that cusp of qualifying to LAN, there's one team that I'm looking at right now, a team that I'm a big fan of that is about to not qualify, and I'm talking about Optic, even Exit here too. Optic potentially just not make it. I mean, what do you think they have to do differently, looking at the performance on Stormpoint versus World's Edge, to maybe take those risks so that way they could elevate themselves and be within that top 11 spot?
Optic just don't seem as comfortable as they once did, especially when it comes to fighting. They historically in the past were just so good at not fighting in order to get KP, but in order to clear space. And so far in this meta, with Caustic making it far more difficult to actually clear teams out, I think that they're just struggling a little bit in that meta. And right now in the position that they're in, it's pretty much win or go home. And so I'm really looking to them to see, can they be willing to get a little bit out of their comfort zone, which usually is, once again, fighting for space. And instead, it's time to start fighting for kills, because as we've seen so far, they haven't really gotten some zones going their way. And so we got to start putting up major points somehow.
Well, there's been plenty of other teams who have gotten some zones that have fallen in their favor. Jayhawk, let's go through and take a look at these last 3 matches and discuss some of the wins that have come true here. This first one, of course, Moist, who come out on top, but didn't optimally start that way.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of teams who get zone, they land over at Echo HQ and we get a devastated pull. But like you said, they didn't start super optimally because they were expecting maybe for it to pull back to Echo. That doesn't happen, and they had to end up taking a balloon rotate onto the high ground of that building in the center of Devastated Coast. And what a great rotate it was, because then they masterfully clear out the team inside, Eternal, then they get to the low ground, do a great job fighting SSG, and when it came down to this end game, they were in a position where we have a clean 3v3 against Cloud9, considering that C9 has been here the whole game and Moist wasn't. The fact that they were able to get this win, what a great game from Moist Esports.
And optimally, they come out on top here, like you said, confidently in the position to deliver that final blow, even though it comes with such a roundabout start that is, once again, optimally showing a lot of that risk factor that some of these teams are beginning to take today. And one of those especially being that going out of Game 4 from Legacy.
Yeah, you can see Legacy here on the low ground. And the interesting part is at Ring 5, they were actually in the heart of Echo. And they were sitting in a position where in order to get to the low ground, they have to cross path Cloud9, Xset, TSM, all these kind of other teams, and they decided to just rotate straight through the center of zone to the low ground. And it was kind of risky because I don't know if they actually knew that it was fully open, and if there's a team there, they're going to have to fight and they potentially even lose it. But that rotate secures them this win. And as we talked about, teams who want to win match point, you got to make risky plays. Well, Legacy making a risky rotate in this game, that's what got them the win. And also it came down to a little bit of a clutch from Jaguars as well.
Yeah, of course, here at the end, that health disparity that we discussed in those final moments, the inability to, even though this shield swap comes through, Hal doesn't have the time to find that white health. And we know even in seconds like that, alongside things like that gas, creating space for Legacy, you just can't come out on top of, unlike certain teams who come out on top of our match 5.
Yeah, shout out to Native here because they were not in one of the greater spots in terms of climatize. They were over in one of those circular donut buildings. They move around the north side rather uncontested, but they had a key moment where they have to force SSG out of their line of sight, like Vicky mentioned earlier. They do that. SSG has to go over towards E8. E8 makes the push, and that just cleared up all this space for Native to then push forward, come in for the third party. And once again, speaking of clutching up, Luxford in the 1v1, he goes huge, despite Zap having the knockdown shield, and he's able to get the win.
Well, overall, this would put Elevate into a pretty strong position, especially with the fact that they are obviously a team who's in our top 10, sitting pretty, and a performance like this seems like it would help them out to get to land for sure. However, the one thing I want to look at here is Native Gaming. If they do pull it off, this would be one of the more epic finishes that we've seen, Jayhawk, because at the end of the day, with 49 points sitting in about 18th, the only way they will be going to land is if they win the entire match point tournament today. We have not seen that before, but do you think maybe we're starting to see an option for Rambo to clutch it up with his boys one more time?
It's certainly possible. I mean, the fact that Native just got this win here, they're feeling confident after that. And also, in recent weeks of scrims, Native have started to look a lot better. They're getting into spots and zones where they can make it into that end game. And once you get there, you just got to let Rambo go crazy, as we've seen him do so many times in the past, whether he was subbing for GMT, playing for the guard, or now Native. I mean, he's used to the big moments. And so if they can get into those spots, he might just show up for you.
Definitely bringing that thing full circle we talked about, which is a team that's willing to make that risky play and make a moment for themselves, give themselves an opportunity to do something special. Native maybe turning into the Cinderella story we're going to have to pay attention to, as TSM still on match point, I believe our only team, but we'll get verified on that in just a bit. Jayhawk, thank you so much for being here, man. One final thing, any predictions, thoughts, looking forward to it after you've seen 5 games here?
It's hard to say anybody but TSM. They get another free game on match point. I don't know where the zone's going to pull, but if they get a good one, they could close it out. But even today, we've seen, I mean, coming all the way from Lightning Rod and having 2 strong games and the south side of Storm Point, they could take another one anyway, despite having, you know, a lack of prio.
All right, Jayhawk, thanks so much for joining us again. Catch up with him on stream or on his YouTube channel as well. Hey, Jayhawk, appreciate you, my friend. We'll talk to you soon.
Appreciate you guys.
All right, you know what it means. It means we have had our halftime recap, and it is time to get back into the action, so I will not delay. Vicky, Zeph, take it away.
Thank you so much, Rain Day. Zeph, we're back at it again, and we're back once again on World's Edge. Man, what a game for E8, though. I mean, how much, like 13 KP, 14 KP? That has elevated them to be very close to match point, but they did not secure it just yet. TSM, like what Jayhawk was saying, once again have another shot at ending this entire regional final if they get the dub this time around.
But optimally, this is something that we have seen rear its head across multiple match point finals. I'm sure you, of course, as well as anyone else, knows that it isn't just that simple. When we talk about delivering the final blow that is that win between teams like, well, Dark Zero and TSM, it is still a tough task to boot, and one that usually does not come immediately, especially with these teams who are so well versed in the art of, well, understanding who is on match point.
Absolutely, and we mentioned it before, we're going to talk about it again. We are moving back over to World's Edge, where we see a shift of different compositions. We don't see the Valkyrie from TSM, that's why we've been seeing those evac towers come out. We don't see the Cat that we've seen from another team. We're seeing the Loba being brought in from Native, and this comes into question the different playstyles that we've been witnessing from the teams that feel more comfortable on Storm Point versus World's Edge, or even vice versa.
Right, exactly, and especially since we have seen a lot of zone-oriented favoring today, especially in comparison to when we were in through our first matches 1 and 2. I'm curious to see that now that we return once again, if we see a similar strain of action going into our 6th matchup, or potentially we do see a return to form, especially with the more edge-oriented styles that have at least, well, delivered what is usually success.
Can't wait to see the success play out for some of these teams here. Let's get started. Game number 6 to solidify where our teams are going to be seeing themselves and if they can make it to land here too. Or can it be ended with TSM being the only team at match point right now? Few other teams are trailing behind. You have to think about teams like E8 that we just mentioned that just had a Goliath of a game. Even Moist, who've been putting themselves consistently up there and having 2 circles pulled towards their POI back in Storm Point for game 3 and 4. We do tune in to the only 50-50 that we get to witness here on World's Edge, and it is Ape Gang, who are neighboring Exet.
Now, notably, this has not really delivered much striations in terms of how things have favored for either one of these rosters coming outside of even the early embers of World's Edge last time around here, but it is something that has provided a bit of a delay, right? When we talk about getting to that kind of zone, something that has become more favored going into the regional finals as these games have gone on. This is something that sets both of these teams behind, when in fact they're the 2 teams that need these wins more than anyone.
It's that risk and reward here too. How long do you want to stay in this fight knowing that Optic is on the other side of Fragment, where they have control over a whole survey beacon, something that neither Exet or Ape Gang have, as well as the fact that they are lacking on loot, such as the life on Monument, honestly, here. See, knocked with the pings. They're just going to start rotating. But I do have to highlight, I talk about the lack of loot, but he's managed to find himself with a purple light mag. We absolutely take those, as well as the Evil Harvester that's actually spawned right next to him on the other side of the fence line. And with a nice overhead here too, Zephyr, we get to see that this circle will be pulling more so between Geyser and Lava Siphon.
Now, this can be one of those deep interested geyser zones where you're either there or you're out of the game, but they do still leave the opportunity open for some of those northern blue boxes chokes that can optimally finish here. If this zone was a little bit further south, encompassing more of Big Mod, you might see something similar to what we saw in World's Edge last time around, where we saw teams like Dark Zero come away with the win. But notably, it still does scare me, especially being this close when a team like TSM is right here along the edge on this side of Lava Siphon.
I swear the script writers are working overtime somewhere in the back end here, because that circle being right there for TSM is going to be absolutely scary. Moist already sliding down to get involved. Already 5 teams within the area, while Complexity fighting in the house over on the outskirts of Lava Siphon, up on that hilltop. Optic on the other side of this here too. They lose out on Lou. Kimchi Lee gets sent down, and Monsoon doesn't really have a lot to work with here. Lacking on that evil shield as he tries to slide down, trying to reposition himself, and it was dropped with the rest of Optic that decided to come into entry frag.
Still, with only one member left standing here, you have to wonder where the follow-through is, and it comes alongside what looks like a very weak TSM. A TSM that also knows for a fact that they need to be healthy and strong going into controlling a position like this. Reps, of course, on that reset is definitely going to be the go button to what is some of the final stration. But I will say, they have cleared out the majority of this. The runs have come through, and for Optic,
wow,
that's a wipe early.
No way. That is so crucial. Optic going down early in game 6. And that was all the chaos happening inside that building alone. I mean, we know that Complexity managed to make it out as a solo. Monsoon was able to slide away out of all of that situation. Exit do get scanned by a beacon nearby, waiting patiently inside of this house. But more of these squads are going to be rotating through that choke that we just saw so many of the other teams fighting on the outskirts of Lava Siphon.
Now, especially I want to touch on this for Optic. Going out in this game is terrifying. They were looking for the points to boot that would put them on match point as well. And especially with a team like TSM still within the lobby, now you have to hope. Your fate is completely out of your hands here. They're one of our few rosters that doesn't just walk into today qualifying off of their raw points alone, and especially now with Cloud9 finding their way into our top 10 after some of our recent series here. They don't, or I believe so, are never to be eligible alongside the points that they can accrue in any kind of position. It is the win or bust for this roster.
Wow, so much pressure. The Green Wall Foundation slowly crumbling here. We have to see if they can make a miracle happen. Oxygen Esports, though, on their rotate, getting gate kept. Full blue Evo shields for this team here. You see the ping to see if maybe they want to wrap around instead. So many other teams looking to try to rotate in the same direction. Exit, we already saw before inside of one of the fragment houses, have not left from their position. They would inevitably try rotating in that same direction that we just saw Oxygen in. Meanwhile, E8, with an explosive last game, rotating through Armory Cave, and with no other squad to try to contest them on the other side of this entrance by Geyser, they'll be able to get a free rotate here and maybe even a free northern house by Geyser that has that slight high ground that overlooks a lot of the other teams fighting on the other side.
Now, notably for a roster that sits at 48 points, you know, we talk about the difference between being on match point and being just below it. And usually we see some teams that sit at 49, right? But when we talk about placement alone, that's a team that needs to breach past the 10th point position mark to start to get into placements that actually work into 2+ points or find a successful fight. One that for Luminosity, they seem to be already in the midst of potentially taking.
Taking with confidence. Look at that Mozam. Yeah, he doesn't got the digi on that, but he's got the gold shotgun bolt ready to go as EEC pop Beast of the Hunt, backing away for right now before taking a different position. I like this call from EEC, sending their blood down to the high ground as McLovin takes a fragging angle. Nice suppressed fire from Sweet Beams with the Hemlock. Tells him to sit back behind cover while the rest of the LG squad managed to rotate to the south. This is the call from Sweet to prioritize their rotate instead of taking this fight over by Harvester after seeing where that next circle could be pulling.
Still, though, it is excellent in terms of displaying the pressure that they need to have there, because EC is optimally in the weighing advantage going into that fight, something that they're about to lose now as they just expended it on Luminosity. For a team like Disguised, who comes in and cleans up on the back, even though EC might be healthy, when we talk about utility, that's something that they won't have here.
Even trying to take that fight versus Skies that have been able to get that circuit beacon too. Was he taking overlook at where this circle is going to be pulling Zephyr? It is going to be moving over to Geyser directly. Even by that choke that Native was holding earlier too. So these squads taking their time. Dark Zero, as per usual, Harvester with EEC and Disguise are going to be finding themselves in a difficult rut with the squads that are going to be gatekeeping them from the south side of Geyser.
This is tough for Disguise, but ultimately in the end, it's not tough for a Wraith. Just finding the way across your portal in hand. Designful, though, setting this one up for potentially that opposite-ended angle that you sometimes see Disguise like to play around to find the damage from behind to a position where usually isn't expected. But granted, with this time of a delay set up in between here, it's unlikely that they're going to find quite the success. McLovin and Sose already in a perfect position to capitalize, finding almost triple cracks across from them.
Jeez, they are absolutely taking advantage of this fight, even closing in the space as they should, just trying to prevent Disguise from trying to get a full reset. It's the ego check, forcing Disguise to not only back away from Harvester, but to now take their time to wrap around the long way into where that next circle is pulling, because you got now less than 20 seconds to make that decision before this circle closes.
We'll see how they fare, especially given the fact that when we did get to check out on this zone, it's contested as it gets. The majority of those who are going to be present within our endgame have already arrived to Geyser, and we talk about why it's so difficult. From the choke up here held by Native Gaming, the one alongside them slightly to the west, and even down below where TSM sit in their house, getting across these points successfully and beating those teams, but then more importantly, working your way into the POI is one of the hardest things to do, in my opinion, when it comes to World's Edge.
With the amount of chokes too, for where some of these circles pull, absolutely. They do have Rambo on that Caustic to make some of that space, and while Native do sit up on top of this hilltop to prevent all these other squads from rotating in, they have the Loba Black Market to get any extra loot that they may need. Dark Zero, though, with their time on their rotate, Evo Harvester after Evo Harvester, and even the Bins, they find themselves with full purples. Doesn't even look like a lick of damage has been put down by Zero. But they see the squad that's inside of this building. They get the scan, avoid that nade here from Jen. That is Ape Gang, by the way, inside of this house with Exet looking with hunger in their eyes, maybe, if they could try to take some shots here.
Now, Dark Zero is on an extensive exchange of a rotate here. More notably, Zero, of course, making the cross to find the Evo cache to get them up to already probably one of the quickest teams to sit on that red Evo to work with here. If they wanted to go into a fight against Ape Gang, they're more than secure.
Especially if they got those Evo shield checks. Meanwhile, teams like LG waiting in silence. Waiting behind the rock for any unexpected squads to get ratted on, specifically the teams like Fury and Legacy. But Dark Zero, looking at EEC, who had made their slow rotate away from Harvester, have chose wrong. They're going to get gate kept by Dark Zero and now are forced with full blue Evo shields, now noting that they're going to get Evo shield checked by Dark Zero, who have the advantage to now back away and take that circle damage and take a slower rotate into that next circle.
This is perfect there, and this is going to cost the resources, of course, of EEC, who have had their delay more notably set up when it comes to the edges of that zone. And for Dark Zero, though, these are the benefits that will continue to extend. Now talking about the chokes ahead here. We understand the applying pressure behind, but having this advantage going into that next fight is going to be huge, especially when they start to breach the edges here. As long as, well, what looks like their backside is completely clear.
Good info here too. DZ. This is the importance right here with the Evo caches and the way that they've been able to make that slow rotate. This works perfect into the DZ playstyle as they've adapted so quickly to Season 20. They do get pinged from behind, though. I did see that 30-30 shot. Maybe from Exit, who are still waiting by the train tracks of Fragment. LG engaged on this fight. They're waiting patiently by the rock. It looks like C9 are right next to them. It was waiting by that Evo cache to try to catch an unexpected squad, but look at the huge nades. Sweet does get the Arc Star knock, though, but it was a trade-up as Stay Naughty is able to get that next Arc Star knock onto Funk. Slayer going down. Sweet is literally 1 HP. Bang called in. The knockdown shields coming in clutch. The insurance policy that he didn't know that he needed. C9, they get eliminated. Saved by TSM Hal himself as LG get to see another day.
Caught between a rock and a hard place there. What was the peek around that gas? Comes back to bite them in the face of a Bloodhound. But I'll tell you what, it doesn't get much easier for teams like Disguise. Now, from above, Legacy have their pickings. A crack found, and even just but 20 damage descend on that knock. They barely miss out on that full.
Oh, man. Legacy on the high ground now. Uncontested from the big mod choke. For now, though, Legacy could easily just wrap around here if they want to. Have to see how this plays out as Disguise now pinned between everybody in the canyon. Now Yanya gonna be able to smoke away, see if they can take some of this circle pressure. Yeah, it's just round 3. It does make your eyes water, but they still are right there next to the circle. They'll be safe and they'll be able to reset.
It might be hot, but not quite enough there. Just a bit of a sunburn as they make their way across. For the other side of our zone, though, it's chaos galore here. Xset notably making their way up directly to try to pressure into this choke that we set up far earlier on. Even still, with this minimal of zone pressure, like we saw with Legacy, they have to worry about the prior cave system alongside the guy, even with scans on the other side.
Actually crazy here. Ultimate Accelerate going to be able to be popped by Nox, so that way he can get that bang online. Boot out Native if they can. That's going to be their Hail Mary when this circle closes in. Look how many squads are waiting on the outskirts of this circle's effort. This is insanity here with so many teams still alive. For now, TSM taking shots. Let's not forget, they are at match points and they are still claiming heads.
I do worry, though. We did get to sneak peek at that map with Furia being very present here on this low ground. Make one wrong move, one far send, and that's an immediate knock from the likes of, well, through Hal there, just barely finding a presence of safety back. Reps now set up above once again with that Mozam Digi combo.
Furia with their best Roach impression, climbing up by the ledge of the cliff here, looking for an opportunity to find an angle on TSM. But TSM had those scans ready, and they know exactly the approach that Furia wanted to go for. And with TSM playing so patiently, they still have the double blue, with Hal being on purple as he's been doing so much poke pressure, leaving one at 1, and the follow from Reps, the synergy. Not surprised, but it's a gift here. TSM see them try to fly through. Let's jump into a listen in with TSM with the circle closing in behind them and more squads landing in front of them.
Fight each other.
We're safe on us for now.
They're safe on me.
They're under us on the right here. They're gonna die for kills.
Anyone have ult cells? Anyone have ult cells?
No.
I got a smoke on us.
Smoke that.
I have to smoke on us. I only have 1 smoke. I have 2 ult cells I can drop.
Yeah, drop it, drop it.
Drop both. I drop both.
Listen, we're full health.
Under us, I think.
Yeah, no.
I have no smokes right now, guys.
Okay. I think we have to drop down here. I think we have to drop. Maybe play me. Actually, play me. Play me. Come to me.
Yeah.
Look at me.
Under the building in front of us.
Look. Evan, you just jumped down.
I fell.
Actually, we're good. Look at these folks. Try their fight.
On the right. Shoot the right side.
Flash, Bloodhound! Flash, Bloodhound!
I can't see him.
I don't see him.
I got him around the fucking...
Push that, maybe?
Finish them down. We don't need to push that.
I'm looking for it.
Hi.
To finish.
At the bat, I'm 1. Bat in.
I'm safe here. I'm full safe on me.
Yeah, full safe.
I still have bang ult for this. We can play on the side of the building.
Look, it's a duo. It's a duo on the right. It's a duo on the right. It's a duo on the right. We need to get them killed.
Alright, loot.
Yeah.
We gotta kill these guys on the right somehow.
70.
I've been killed, actually.
He's getting shot. 100 on crack blood.
We can push up with bang ult.
No. We don't need to push that. I need
someone was behind this tree.
There is. Can you smoke that angle so I can scan the building, please?
Yeah.
Or smoke right here. Smoke right here, maybe.
Okay, I don't have a smoke now. I just smoked it. Like
It's fine. It's fine.
You can do it.
There's a 3-man in every side.
I feel like
We have to just play it on any. We're gonna get fucked though. No?
Where do we play then? If we...
Okay, I'm down to cross now. I'm down to cross now. I'm down to cross now. I'm down to cross now.
Nothing this.
Yep. Looking. 100 caustic. I'm gonna shot on the window.
96.
I'm gonna down to the window.
No, you're not.
I'm batting. I'm gonna die to sping ult.
I'm pumping that.
I got kidnapped.
I'm safe on me.
I got kidnapped. What's up? I'm dead. That's all you guys. There's a 2-man.
I'm dead. Play your life off.
It's two.
Bro, like.
Oh,
man.
And we go again. TSM not only with the kidnap, but kidnapping their opportunity to win on match point is the wonderful Wraith plays from Design coming in from Disguise as they move in from the circle, exit, now fighting for their lives on the outskirts as Sentinels get eliminated.
It's one of those moments where you just can't believe it's happening. It feels like the days of yore here. We've seen Design and crew get aggressive, but to come out on top, that seals the fate of so many other rosters, similarly to how Koi is finding Nox within the window, potentially now their access to the interior. But I'll tell you what, with Fun looking low and Caustic Gas, it doesn't get much easier.
Look, Wraith stocks up, that's all I know here. Disguised. Lots of fans coming in to look at this team succeed. LG fighting for their life on the low ground here. Managing to get that scan by the rocks. But with the Beast of Hell activated and still getting pinged on the other side, they know that they are pinched here. It's Disguise right behind LG, Legacy right in front of them. Disguise holding split angles here too. 9 squads left, and the majority of these teams are sharing the real estate inside of Geyser.
For DSG, looking low, but having the perfect setup on the edge of the wall there. It is another wealth of points for them across their KP. Now for Moist, swinging outside. You found the damage earlier, but you weren't able to follow through for Xset. What could have been is, even still, a punishment for Nocturnal, but a 2v1 situation. One that comes at the cost of this roster in 7.
So unfortunate here, but Moist stays on top now. Clearing out that entire building means that they'll have some freedom to reset as this final circle is closing. Final circle and 6 squads left. You've Disguised, Legacy, Moist, dropped in Space Station, and the solo that is Furia right below everybody. Look at Keon just minding his own business.
I don't know if it's due to the pressure, but Designful with no white health is driving me insane here. Hasn't been able to likely find the resource, and there you can see as we tune on down the low, yes, nothing to be had here. A single Caustic Gas trap would be enough, but can he get, well, Disguised to a position up upon the roof? Space Station Gaming are more than happy to welcome Disguised with open arms.
And getting that knock onto Design was huge. They finally found the rat that was Furia. Timmy cleans that up. Extra KP here for Disguise. And Space Station with the scan. See the team right below them. Chaos is ensuring now as 5 squads are left. Legacy on the other side, but Space Station have the high ground. Disguise playing outside the building on the low ground.
From above, though, this stack is so hard to navigate. Seconds to boot when we talk about having to make an exit here for SSG with no cover to even exist within. It's the perfect opportunity for them to drop in. Well, find themselves now lower than can be with Crook. JE on Orioles working their way out at the very end here. They're more than happy to clean things up, but don't have the time to reset as Legacy from above clean it up.
Legacy with the Game 6 win. But can we talk about all the teams that were still alive for that final circle? That was absolutely insane, and the easiest route was Legacy clearing out their back. Let's also not forget, Zephyr, that was a Legacy taking the circle damage to rotate from the big mod choke. They knew that they had to approach from that angle where we saw teams like even LG give up more of that space when they decided to move up and pressure other squads from trying to traverse through the open ground outside of Lava Siphon.
Exactly. We got to see the perspective coming through from what was the western side of the zone here, with most of our teams having to make that major cross into the direct geyser choke. What we never got the chance to really see was how well Legacy were applying pressure to the other end. When we talk about the present teams that were trying to take away that position, Luminosity for sure, but Legacy, of course, defending against the likes of Disguised as well. Had they been able to potentially make that rotation around that edge, they could have been in the dominant position to win from above as that building collapsed.
Hey, Legacy, Space Station on the high ground by the roof shaking hands because they were the ones that helped pressure out Disguise from trying to take the easy approach through the Wraith portal that Design had tried to set up alongside with Space Station before he inevitably got knocked. Crazy final game right there overall, even with Disguise having to share that low ground there. The solo that was left of Moist too, being able to take a chunk out of Timmy before he falls to Moist hands. It was a lot of chaos for the building, for the squads inside the building though, but that's to be expected with the Caustic being put into the meta, you playing on World's Edge, and the space that was taken inside of those buildings thanks to those barrels.
Absolutely. Just being able to survive there. We get to see that most directly from Moist after what was an excellent beam from Koifel to find that initial knock there. They never are able to actually follow up, given the fact that, well, things like that Caustic make it far too hard to push within these buildings. As a result, they get to come out at the end and clean things up. Similar to teams who, in the end, like Drop In Gaming, get to come out at the very last moment, and even though they don't win, come out on top with a higher placement due to that defense.
And that's with Legacy also taking 2 dubs for the day, all right? They took game number 4 that you and Dia were able to take us through on Stormpoint, which also highlights how Legacy is one of those squads that have no issue whether it means taking a win on World's Edge versus a win on Stormpoint. And that was the last game that we had on World's Edge before we make that transition onto Stormpoint. So while we calculate everything, Legacy could be meeting themselves right next to TSM there.
This is something that now works its way into a lot more of those threats that we discuss when we talk about match point format. TSM have had their chance now, 2 games in a row, but this is where the calculations get a lot harder for all those teams doing the mental math. It's easy to keep track of one squad. It gets very difficult when we start adding others to the mix here, potentially as we come to a conclusion regarding some of those overall points.
And you can hear the pressure from the teams that do want to nail down that dub. I mean, TSM being the only team at match point before that game there, they were in a lot of trouble with that rotate. You could hear it in their comms, but the poor man Verholst could not get a break, whether he was getting beamed by the teams on the building mid-rotate or even getting kidnapped. He can't even sit down to pop a med kit for the life of him. And that was the power of Design being the only Wraith in the lobby, being able to reposition. Actually, I love it. Shout out to Prod. We get to see the clip ourselves. This was after he had already gotten kidnapped, but this just leaves Hal playing inside the crevice before TSM get eliminated by Disguise. You could hear in their comms earlier that they were getting peaked, but they were also getting beamed by the teams that were playing inside the building over to the left side. You could even see it through that window, but that's why it was so important to conserve those smokes to try to help you out in mid-rotate. But regardless, you're going to be in the line of sight of 2 different teams. You could try to rock climb up all the way up to that lip, but you're still at that positional disadvantage when you try to force that position.
And it just goes back to the zone. When we talked about it at the very beginning of the game here, Geyser is just one of those positions that you have to be a part of. If you're working your way in off of a slower rotate, we see so many of our teams get eliminated as a result. It's the squads that are there from the get-go here. You talked about Legacy off of their late zone 3 rotation through the edges. That's something that comes back to pay dividends literally 10 minutes after the decision is made. It's one of the few places on World's Edge where you have to be proactive there. And while, yes, there are times when that zone can just kind of shore its way out a little bit closer to that western choke there, setting yourself up for the transition that is easier rather than the perfect ending is something that you have to adapt to when you are looking for that major win. It was something that even in day 9, when we chatted with Psycho, he would be someone that rather sets his team up for that potential rather than getting into the direct position and hoping for that perfect God spot.
Especially when you're at match point. We're going to tally up the entire scores, guys, to see which of our teams are going to be meeting TSM at match point. Don't go anywhere, because on the other side of this break, we'll have the scores ready for you. Welcome back, everyone. Thanks for waiting. I'm here joined with Dia, and Dia, you get to join me as we tally up the match results and the series standings, because I'm expecting a few teams to be meeting TSM on match point after an explosive final circle on Geyser.
You know, we so often get teams that like break into the first match point and we're like, ooh, are they gonna end it now? And they never end it now. They always drag it out for a few more games, and everybody very aware most often of who is in the end game lobbies. This time, Legacy, of course, took the win. SSG right behind them. SSG, who were tied with Cloud9 earlier in the day, have now pulled sharply ahead of them, with Drop-In Gaming and Moist coming up behind. I was pretty pleasantly surprised by Disguised as well. I know that we were on the TSM listening inside of that, but hearing Burles almost die, then almost die, and then get kidnapped and die. It was too good. It was too good.
It was tragic here. We take a look at more of the score, but did you see Moist with a double-digit KP? TSM on the other side, you mentioned it, mid-rotate absolutely gets destroyed. We all have been in Verhol's position playing Apex Legends and lobbies like that, but TSM do go out while sitting at match point, even though they were able to get 5 KP. And it was one of those tough circles, but my eyes were on that bottom team, Dia. The green wall. It is crumbling. Optic being one of the first teams to go out in that last lobby. Time is of the essence.
Over at Lightning Rod that can get incredibly contentious. Going into this game, we have got 4 teams on match point. TSM, Moist, Legacy, and Space Station Gaming. Those are the squads that you're gonna have to keep your eyes on.
Getting word here that we're going to get a quick little restart before diving into Storm Point, though. But to highlight your point, Dia, looking at the way that some of these teams have been able to take advantage of the POI advantage with where the circles are pulling, I jinxed it with Echo HQ, right? We were talking about it before we went into our first game of Storm Point. I said, you know, we've been seeing this a lot. And then you mentioned Variety, and then Apex said no. We had so many different southern zones already. Maybe we'll see a mix-up, though. I have faith in a northern zone. You know what? I'm going to throw a dart on the board. I'm thinking maybe Lightning Rod or even North Pad here. That would be lovely, seeing how some of our squads have been able to adapt. I'm thinking about the time that even Exit had clutched in that final circle, the one time that we saw that circle pull towards North Pad. As we do get set up, though, we also get to witness different composition swaps going on to Storm Point. This is where we could expect TSM to probably swap back over to the Valk and even the Catalyst coming out for some teams.
And we talked about this last time we were on Storm Point. I believe it was in the Echo HQ zone, although it could have been Devastating Coast because, let's be honest, they were very similar. But we did talk about the fact that Complexity were running Watson, and Watson has lost a little bit of value, weirdly, moving into this season. I'd expected her to be a lot stronger, but with Horizon leaving the meta, she's not as good of a counter to a lot of other things that are happening. She still is incredibly strong, and I want to see more teams making use of things like Watson. We even saw Disguised with a Catalyst that, while it didn't achieve the end game glory of Catalysts gone by, still did have its moments, especially in putting up defenses towards pylons. So while we've got just 1 or 2 squads running the odd legend here and there, that's where I think we should be seeing arguably the most value come out of them, because all it takes is for you to be in the right position, like we've seen Complexity and Disguised be, and all of a sudden you can do something that no one else can do. It's the Caustic problem, but in reverse.
Yeah, that's where the Trailblazers for certain legend comps come into play. I mean, Disguise being the only team to run the Wraith, doing what we just saw on World's Edge to poor Verhols. I mean, that also allows teams to go for an easier rotate. You mentioned the Caustic being a problem, and where a lot of teams play for that final circle position, getting the ring consoles and already settling down in a building of where they could predict where that circle is going to be pulling is lethal. That's where the Caustic just bunkers down, and you're not going to be seeing anything else other than the inside of the building and maybe some poke pressure depending on your weapon loadout for the remainder part of the game here, which is also why we were seeing the Loba on World's Edge with a very similar tactic. You sit down on where you feel like the circle will be pulling after getting that ring console information, and instead of denying yourself loot, you're able to use that black market, which you could choose the perk that expands the black market, and you could get even more loot if you feel like that's what you're lacking here, aside from the fact that you're denying yourself Evo Harvester charge.
Yeah, Loba's a really fascinating pick, because it is Native that's running Loba when we're on World's Edge, and if I'm recalling correctly, they're running it out of Landslide, which is fascinating. I think we see Loba out of Dome, Landslide, and sometimes Skyhook, because on World's Edge, she's really POI specific. When you're landing near any place that has a vault, you get a lot of value out of Loba really quickly, because you can loot up and get great loot and then move on. When we're on Stormpoint, she does lose some value, but at the same time, that very same thing you were talking about of loot up, move on, be able to stay a little bit more mobile while keeping your economy in check does stay true, and yet we don't see nearly as many teams run Loba specifically. So I am wondering whether there is something that Loba can bring on Stormpoint that we just haven't seen, or whether this interaction with vaults that she has will leave her ultimately as more of a World's Edge pick.
And that's probably going to be the next direction of where these comps are going to lie after the change that we're going to be seeing on the patch notes that release tomorrow on March 26th. But it's also interesting to see how some of these teams have made that quick adjustment at the start of Season 20 and then having to shift away from there after seeing certain just nerfs or even buffs for certain legends. I like to shift away from Lifeline to now being able to get guaranteed gold knock. But specifically looking at the teams that change up their comp on World's Edge in the current patch that we're on, the Valkyrie that TSM has found that success on a map that TSM is very consistently winning the game on, that is going to be interesting since this is Stormpoint now and there aren't a lot of Valkyries. Verhol's probably being the only one that we've seen consistently with this team comp. The problem lies in more teams running Valkyrie, because with Valkyrie means that more teams are going to get to the circle positioning that they want to be. Something that TSM doesn't really have to worry about thanks to the Valkyrie passive with the information that comes when you're in the sky. Now, of course, that's negated by the teams inside of a building since they're not in Valkyrie's line of sight, but it's still extra information on the squads that are mid-rotate.
The whole thing that's brought Valkyrie back into the meta is her blue perk Afterburners. Being able to get pre-nerf Valkyrie on your team before you leave your POI is the purple's great. Like it's nice to have, but it really doesn't change Valkyrie that much. And she actually brings up a really fascinating point about legends and the way that Evos work now. Because Evo Shields introduced perks, Valkyrie is a legend that has a really early power spike. As soon as you hit blue, she increases in value by like 2 or 3 tiers. Once you hit purple, she doesn't really move that much. And we're seeing very different stories, say with somebody like Wraith that Disguised run. Wraith hitting blue doesn't actually spike her that much. She doesn't get that much more powerful. It's when you hit purple that all of a sudden Wraith becomes a really active rotational legend. And it is one of the things that while we get more varied compositions nowadays, we as the viewers get to enjoy, which is how different teams throughout their EVO journeys get to make use of the literally different times that their legends become more powerful relative to their counterparts on other teams.
I love you brought that up, actually, because it also comes into question the risk and reward of getting early blue here for Valkyrie. Now, imagine if her ult being 25% higher was moved over to the purple perk, something that would change things up a lot for teams that take their time on rotating, who try to prioritize Evo Harvesters, like we've seen from Dark Zero. They prioritize on getting those Evo Harvesters, and that's their pathing planned out for where that circle would be moving later on. And then, you know, Valkyrie having it on the blue means that you could quickly get one Evo Harvester and immediately rotate off of a skyward dive.
It's really fascinating. That trade-off specifically is likely what's keeping Valkyrie here. If we moved all of a sudden Afterburners to purple, not that we could do that, but you know, the balance team moved Afterburners to purple, we'd likely see a lot less teams running Valkyrie as a result. As incredibly powerful as she is, early moves have always been what Valkyrie is best at. Late game, the rotations from Valk can be useful, but they can be just as detrimental to so many squads who oftentimes do get kind of caught without knowing exactly where they're going to land. We've seen it happen many times in Valk metas previous, and we've even caught it happening on screen during this year's ALGS. But the next game that we've waited so long for, Vicky, it begins now. Game 7 with 4 teams on match point. I will remind everyone, TSM, Moist, Legacy, SSG, those teams can end the games now.
So much on the line here. Thank you everyone for waiting. Game 7, Dia. I'm excited to see how this plays out with so many teams already on match point. A lot on the favor here for teams like TSM, who find themselves with that success story on stroke point that we've seen plenty of times. Get to hang out now and see where the circles will be taking us. Once again, I am predicting that northern circle, and we may have been blessed.
I'm hoping so. It would be a lot of fun to go up north again. High versus low ground disparity is always really exciting to watch, but it is going to take a while for a lot of teams to be in the know about where exactly the ring is going. A team like Drop-In doesn't have access to an early beacon, but we on the broadcast, we know what's up. We are going north. Vicky, there's something going on with you. You should look into this.
It's crazy. It's the accuracy out here. We sometimes play this game too on stream to make sure where these circles are going to be pulling, and we always love to see so many of these RNG circle pullers thrive out here. But I want to specifically highlight how close the circle is to TSM, who land in Lightning Rod, who also have a circle beacon right there. So they will have information when they go on their rotate, perhaps even through Zoo Station, where LG will also have not only the ring console, but as well as a survey beacon.
SSG benefiting in their POI from a proximity to a lot of PvE. I think it was you that mentioned this just as we left Stormpoint, Vicky, but being able to have PvE in the form of prowlers and spiders next to your POI is just as, if not more valuable than, say, things like Evo Harvesters spawning next to you, because they're specific items that you can grab or specific activities that you can engage in that get you Evo that then no one else can get.
I've seen it so many times already with Dark Zero, specifically that last game on World's Edge. They're able to gatekeep with red Evos without even spreading a little bit of damage. Talking about different utility, the replicators being on Moist POI, and they got a gold extended heavy mag. You'd love to see it here, but since the circle is pulling all the way to the north, Moist do have to make a little bit of a trek. So it looks like we are going to be zooming over to that next circle, playing by the edge, and that also means that Moist will be passing C9 soon on their POI by Coastal.
Moist are one of the few teams that is going to be forced to play really hard edge in this scenario. They don't have rotational legends. They don't have an easy way to bypass teams that hold up north, and unfortunately they just don't have easy access to a spot like this. Fury, on the other hand, landing over by wall, have arguably one of the best ways to play this game out, and they are making themselves comfortable doing it. When the ring pulls really far north, Vicky, it is like 7 times out of 10 it lands on this platform or the one above it, and Furion know that as well as anyone.
Absolutely. Or even LG, where LG is right now with the survey beacon that we saw earlier. That's going to be a tough spot when you hold that rather early, especially when you're still with all full blues, but they still have a good amount of loot, it looks like here. Poking potential from Sweet. You look like the Flatline and even the Havoc, and it even looks like the care package that's right underneath him if he so wants to just drop down and have the rest of his teammates cover his back here. But you can only imagine teams like TSM probably already on the higher ground with their rotate from Lightning Rod. We saw that Furia were getting pinged by a Sentinel from afar. It's probably Complexity that has already entered the fight through their own choke. But so many squads have not wasted any time to get into where they predict this next circle is going to be pulling.
It was in EMEA last time that we saw a ring play out in such a way that it favored a team like Luminosity. Sitting up on the high ground, you can actually play a very non-interactive game of Apex Legends. Luminosity have to defend their bins, and that's it. So, Made in Heaven, they've won a game from here. LG can do a very similar thing. TSM from up on the high ground do have a little bit more adaptability than other squads, and I do want to pay tribute as well, Vicky, to the fact that we saw Designful going for an Evo Harvester with Wraith. That, while it looked a little awkward, is one of the very few crazy things you can get away with when you're one of the only people running Wraith.
Yup. I love how you pointed that out, especially the Evo Harvester being in the middle of everybody's line of sight. Now you get that for your team without overextending here. You see them trying to take some shots while the action does not stop. Oh, he yeeted that Nox grenade. I mean, there's no follow potential here, but they do get the knock, which starts off everything. That is going to be Sentinels now closing in the gap onto E8. But don't fret, on the other side of this fight, A-Gang is slowly creeping up from the other side of wall, and Disguise are looking onto this fight. They pay for it as Sentinels lose out on one of their teammates, and Luda's trying to give him suppressed fire.
This whole fight from Sentinels is really rough. From the caustic ult that started it all, that just whiffed hitting a roof, to a super wide swing by Zenile, Sentinels were not on the same page, and a third party just exacerbated that problem. Oxygen are the beneficiaries of this, but Sentinels also didn't do a whole lot of damage on their push, so there's a big chance that E8 are able to reset inside this building and fend off Oxygen's engage.
Yeah, they could thank Oxygen for forcing Sentinels to back away here. Sometimes they maybe reset, but Vayne gets beamed. He trades knock for knock here, as now the rest of Oxygen trying to see if they can get the reset. E8 now lose out on another. And with Aiden getting pinged from the other side, I don't think that one last straggler of E8 could really get the reset here, as Sentinels are looking to try to re-engage.
This fight is so messy, Vicky. I am sweating bullets right now. E8 still survive on the outside. Zap hoping for the clutch that never came on World's Edge. We'll retreat to the roof as Oxygen managed to reset on the low ground. This is all the best that E8 can hope for, is to get away at this point, and they should be able to do just that with Zap having the head start that they already got.
Ooh, wait a minute. That one last straggler of Sentinels, Luda managing to go away. I think Luda was able to get the banners maybe, because there's a Moby on the other side of wall that they could actually use to respawn the rest of their team. We're gonna have to see how that plays out for Sentinels. Yes, that one rat of Sentinels is gonna be able to get away. Again, not sure if he was able to get the banner, but would be absolutely huge if he could get the respawn, as we are looking at TSM's POV. It's gonna be a squad right in front of them. That's gonna be Space Station that is now trying to rotate from Zeus, and this next circle is pulling right on top of TSM.
This is uncanny. Yeah, even LG, who were down in the low ground in what we had theorized to be a god spot earlier, have to be looking at this next ring pull that they'll see in about a minute, and going, well, I don't know how we're going to adapt to this. Many teams are going to be caught not knowing how they'll deal with an ultimate push up to TSM. Yes, this squad may be on blues, but they've got very little to deal with in terms of actual siege onto them. It's very hard to engage onto the high ground like that, and TSM have all the time in the world to hit purples off of damage alone.
And that's why they moved up in the way that they have. It's just Hal and Reps on one side. They've left Verhols to take control over the high ground, because being on the Valk, you could easily just fly right back up there. So he's going to take a look and put pressure onto the teams behind him. The rest of TSM now have moved back, but they put in the pressure that they need before looking on the other side. You see Hal now trying to harass LG. He was one shot away from purple. He finally gets that online. Reps now going right back to the building, and they could trade sides, but basically they're looking at 3 squads all at the same time.
SSG has got to be the biggest problem, not just for TSM, but for any squad that actually wants a fighting chance at winning this game. Uprooting SSG must be your #1 priority, as otherwise an uncontested rotate from Zeus will have very few other squads to deal with. And when we're running in a game that has as many Bangalores as this, they're going to be pretty darn impossible to shoot at as they approach you anyways. SSG for now just have to hang out, but this game is going to have their position aging really, really well.
I'm talking about Optic earlier. This is a team that needs to have an amazing game. Have to see how this plays out here for this squad, as they are going to be relying on the rock form, some natural cover here. It's going to be a TSM once again on the high ground, but they're right next to Sentinels over to their right. Furia that are neighboring them inside of that building that we saw them take place in earlier in the start of the game. And Legacy involved in a fight here too. Nizul was able to get the first knock onto Crook for this fight.
Surely Legacy don't go down. At no point should we be concerned about that. Legacy have definitely shown up with their team fighting chops today. Slide on by, collecting a quick KP before moving on to the rest of the fight. However, with Jaguaris down, it is just Jay standing in a 1v1 against Nazul. Yet another kill goes down, but drop in do ultimately fall. Legacy play that a little bit closer than I had imagined, but still come out literally and figuratively on top.
Like, you got 2 knocked though, so you're feeling yourself from that, but it may be too little too late as Legacy stay alive in this game while being on match point. 18 squads left, and Legacy approaching from the high ground here is really smart, considering that you could slide down to the choke that would open up to where TSM is on that high ground building, and Zeus Station, where Space Station will be rotating from. Something similar that Moist have taken note of, and they are now posted up on the high ground of Command Center, looking at Legacy through the bunker doors.
There is another fight in Legacy's future. There has to be. There's no way that Moist can actually rotate out of this without going through Legacy. Were they to jump down onto the low ground through Command Center, they're going to be eaten up by the next zone. No way that they survive that. Instead, now you've got to gamble. And I hesitate to say that it's a 50-50, because Legacy have already shown up and won 2 games today, but if anybody can shut them down, it is going to be the reinvigorated Moist, who have claimed to game themselves and could choose to even the score. They will have to rely, however, on a lot of uncanny bang smokes and caustic ults to get them through. In fact, they're not even going to risk it. This is a surprising turn of events. Moist are going to try and rotate over through Thunder Watch off an evac tower instead. This may work out, but there's an not insignificant chance, Vicky, that this does not work out at all. Let's find out as we jump into Illicit in with Moist.
There's a team up the hill. I 100% saw someone.
I'm med-kitting. They're not in either. Do we have another evac?
As well.
We got an evac. We got a med-kit. Get up and we can look to evac from around the corner.
I don't know if we can get up empty.
Our climb up is like
you can. You can get up right here on me.
Okay. Wait, how did you climb that?
You guys need to look stuck in evacs.
Down back.
We might have taken the zone.
Bang up.
I'm gonna take zone and take it.
I'm dead. You guys just gotta take it.
I'm going now. I'm just gonna fly in guild.
Holy fuck, I got beat up.
You can lane in one of these walls. If you lane in this, you can probably right there. Maybe.
Oh, there's a team in there.
Alright, you play yourself.
Well, that did not work out as they expected at all. However, Vicky, I can say with confidence, we called it. This was not an easy rotate. While Moist are technically alive, that is a temporary status. Waldsea survives just next to EEC as Legacy, I'm sure wondering what on earth happened to the squad behind them, go on and slide down the hill in a much better position. A lot of open space that they can play here, while still, albeit facing down SSG and Zeus Station.
Look, I think they can figure it out after Kale seeing the 2 evac towers and then them beaming them right in front of them. I mean, Moist were just sitting ducks at that point, but they have not been eliminated yet. Like, well, as I said that, as that just happened. They do get them, but not only that, but it was Sentinel's Oxygen, Optic, Elevate. Everyone is dropping like flies. Yes, 12 squads left now.
And this is just the beginning, Vicky. When we knew that Skulls were going to be cold moving up the hill, yeah, we knew it was going to get this bad, and it'll get even tougher for squads that are approaching off the low ground. Teams like SSG, their game will get a little more difficult as they've got to encroach on TSM. And ultimately, high ground's not going to be that forgiving. But for squads coming from low ground, the XSETs, the LGs, the Ape Gangs, the Disguise of the lobby, their chances of survival through the next zone are next to zero.
This is crazy. I can't make this up. The circle's pulling directly on top of TSM. With 11 squads left in this lobby, Space Station now trying to take this fight. Let's jump into a listen with Space Station to prevent EEC from moving in.
Don't in.
They're getting shot on their side. They're gonna die. They're getting shot on their side.
They cost to the left.
Cracked. Oh, almost all cracked.
They're pushing my left.
I see them.
Being cracked.
Yeah.
They're not. One die. Chill.
Betting. You have
17 seconds.
Do we back up and...
We should back up. We should back up now. We should back up now.
I'm back.
Yep.
Another team flying in close.
I'm throwing evac.
Side.
Call mine in.
Yeah, call it. I'm throwing in over here. I'm calling mine in over here. Can you guys drop me a back before we low? Drop me a back.
Yeah, here. Dropping you one.
Okay, go. No cost to go, by the way.
Yeah, that's fine. Look roof. Triple roof. Can we slam in their side? Yeah. Slam in their side.
Land there.
They're gonna fight buildings. They might fight buildings.
Getting downwards.
Yeah. I'm playing. Stay for me.
Team down low.
I'm popping
They fight high. Yeah. Here.
I'm chilling here. I need to play.
Okay.
You need to reset this with barrels, okay?
Yeah, I know. I am. I have no barrels right now. No barrels.
We need to look down low.
I'm looking for the evac behind us.
I run up here too.
They just broke.
Their team might run up on my ping, alright?
No, they ran inside.
Love the comms that we're hearing from Space Station to make their safe rotate out of the line of sight of TSM. One of the 2 other teams now alive in this circle. Ape Gang, EC get eliminated, and TSM have the high ground with Legacy playing right underneath them and Space Station far to their left side. They have line of sight of this squad as they keep pressuring them out downhill.
It is not a massive problem yet, but TSM are running low on ammunition. They don't actually have all the time in the world to sit up here. Eventually, they're going to have to move down and take some loot off of the squads below them. Squads that really haven't died yet. There's only 1 kill for TSM so far, and at this point, on match point, that doesn't matter at all. TSM have to win the game.
This is actually insane. Game number 7, it may end here. We have to see TSM holding high. Legacy inside the other match point team.
Oh my god.
While Dark Zero are fighting for their lives, trying to gatekeep C9 from exiting out of the tunnel. XSET get eliminated. Our 7 squads left. The Disguise meet them back in the lobby.
And as XSET goes down, they've got to be scared. Because the chances that this game ends, that this match day ends here and now are increasing, and XSET's chances of going to LAN have not. TSM still up on high ground, still running ever lower, maybe losing a lot of valuable endgame resources to Legacy in the meantime. There's a really big, not insignificant chance, Vicky, that Legacy come up from below and straight up win this game simply because of the additional resources they'll have.
That would be absolutely insane. Even Luminosity that's off to the side. Yes, they're still full blue here, but they can gatekeep the teams that are fighting to the south. Dark Zero now versus C9. They cleaned them up, and now SSG are looking directly at them, but they have to look to their backs. They are still getting pressured out by TSM that have high ground, and now Dark Zero are forced to meet against Native Gaming on the low ground.
SSG really unlikely to full win the game from here. We haven't seen a team win from that low ground in a zone like this since Horizon was in meta, and I don't see anybody running Horizon right now, so access to the height will be almost impossible. SSG are going to climb that hill no matter what, however, getting themselves closer to the end game and technically in zone. 4 teams are left. 3 of them can win now. It would have to be LG, who are still on blues, that win this game in order to push us to another match.
They just got to purple now after all the chaos from the south side of the zone. Look at this. TSM on the high ground. Legacy right below them. Space Station, who are also a match point over to the side. While Luminosity may save the day. We may see another game of Apex, but it's going to be so tough here, depending on how they rotate through that fence line and put themselves in the line of sight of not just TSM, but also Legacy.
And while it happened off screen, I believe TSM's ammo troubles have been solved. There was plenty of energy left on Verhulst, who will be putting through the majority of the damage in close range fights like this. So TSM, at least in good hands resource-wise, still do have to worry about their positioning. Taking a look at the zone, we're actually moving straight on top of Luminosity, who now have to play defense as they had set themselves up to do from the very beginning. With the Caustic in hand, much like many others, they should be able to do it, but Luminosity have yet to win a game during the regional finals. Then they've got to do it now.
The time where it matters the most here, Yanya gets the knock onto Phony. Zul's trying to take a different off angle with the wingman in hand, but they can't fully commit to this fight. They know if they give up this space, it is GG here with LG looking at them straight in the face.
And Legacy do not have to worry about anything. They've got so much more cover than a team like SSG on the low ground. A single member left, and Legacy will eventually have to pick one of two possible exits from this building. They can wait on that decision, however, as they're going to have plenty of squads exiting the lobby before then. TSM now have to decide, do they deal with LG first? Do they deal with Legacy first? Because the choice is theirs, but it is not an enviable one. The third parties are real in end games like this.
They're waiting for it, but this is something to come into question. The compositions. The Valkyrie doesn't have a lot of utility in end zone like this, even with her purple Evo Shield perk, but they do have the ability to get onto that high ground here as Verhulst takes some shots at LG moving in. They're taking onto the low ground, and evac tower has been called in from Legacy. LG now are looking to slow rotate this, and with the smoke nade blocking their vision, TSM are trying to split their attention to the squad right below. Because if they take this evac tower, they can get right on top of them.
TSM can take the middle ground right now. They don't want to give up height too soon, but a huge Bangalore roll rips through TSM. Very low health bars, but they're still burning Luminosity, dropping onto the middle ground. It's TSM looking down on a clash of Legacy and Luminosity. Everyone knows they're on height, but they can't do much about it. Luminosity are hiding, Legacy are hiding, and eventually TSM are gonna have to come down. Hal throws in a nice shot with the Volt, and somehow, some way, the Caustic Gas wins it all, and TSM win on match point.
TSM, your NA Split 1 regional final winners. They do it again as they have so many times. But what a final circle, final game 7 that we just had right there, Dia.
The plot armor is so ridiculously thick, Vicky. That was ludicrous. And I mean, tell me if you saw something different, but our endgame perspective was essentially teams poke, all of a sudden everyone's dead.
What was I was worried about was how taking as much damage as he did before dropping down to the low ground, knowing that yes, he popped the shield bat, but it was his health, his raw health that I was worried about, because we knew there was a Caustic in the end circle. We saw the Nox nade come out, clearing up a lot of space, but the fact that they were able to survive on the lip without taking the Nox grenade damage pressure was absolutely huge. With Legacy opting to rotate from the bottom side because they knew if they rotated from outside the building, their heads would be exposed to TSM on the high ground, since that would be the last thing there. What a way to play that final circle. That is why TSM stays on top as we bring back Rain Day to break down all the action that we just saw. But what an ending to the day, Rain Day.
What an ending to the day. What a start of our regional finals. Well, excuse me, our split 1 regional playoffs that are going to be coming up. We know TSM will certainly be there, as if we had much of a doubt. But what an ending, too, to showcase these teams. When you specifically not only mention SSG, but I wanted to focus on LG and TSM and the way Sweet also played a huge role in stopping Optic, which allowed TSM our latest win at championships as well, which is what I think is so interesting about how LG somehow finds a way to be in the narrative, even if they couldn't really win it yet. But patience maybe is the other big topic. TSM up on high, and with SSG and Legacy trying to find ways, they just could not get there because TSM was there from the beginning. And wow, I guess if we have to add one more word, could it be a little bit of plot armor, a little bit of luck? The fact that it pulled north, I don't know if you had something to do with that, Vicky, but that was exactly what TSM needed, because the second that circle showed up, they were there, and that was where they won the game from.
It's just whenever you see TSM having circle advantage, especially on Stormpoint. I mean, the legacy literally continues for this team, always on this map. I started sweating a little bit, I have to be honest, but man, they held that spot amazingly.
Dia, when we spoke with Jayhawk, it was so clear that though he wanted to say all these different teams and show us his analysis, which we always appreciate, he had a hard time saying anything but, well, it's TSM. And in fact, he was right, like many of us was right. I'm trying to figure out the math on this because it seems to be running on an equation that feels improbable, but it has to be something that keeps allowing them to do what they do best, which is win our final match points.
Yeah, one of the things that TSM really has going for them is that they play always, or very, very nearly always, like they're in a very high level lobby, or what we call a conservatively played lobby, where teams are very afraid of dying because the game could end. TSM play like that more or less the entire way throughout the season, but they really step it up a notch when everyone else is playing like that as well, because you can leverage a spot like TSM's not just into a good position for the end game, but into pushing a lot of other teams away from you because they're afraid to make the approach. I think we saw TSM use that really well there because they had a great zone prediction coupled with a lot of respect that's given to them by other teams that they don't normally get when it's just the regular season.
What an interesting showcase of the consistency of this esport that's supposed to be completely RNG in its nature with a BR, and you don't know what weapon you're going to get. Well, we found a way to continue to have these same teams show up. Surprisingly, it wasn't Dark Zero's day. They started off pretty well. They definitely had a few moments where I thought it might be a battle for first, but it ended up mostly being around the Moist side. SSG doing really well with this new roster as well, and them coming back into Apex this season. LG and Slayer and Funk joining Sweet, kind of saying this is a new chapter, and it's proven that they were absolutely a team that can play with the best of them and is always capable of winning a game. But somehow we find ourselves saying TSM are the champions, and we find ourselves saying it yet again in our NA regional finals. This sets up LAN, but what it also does is give us the other teams outside of what we know as TSM, Moist, and Dark Zero who will be joining us, and we will be bringing those scores to you very shortly. But the anticipation is still real because teams that we had talked about, XSET, did they do enough? What about Optic Gaming? Did they have a chance, Vicky? These are things we were trying to calculate on the fly, but it may be one of the first lands in a while, maybe ever, we have not seen the presence of some of these historied teams.
Is Optic cooked? We have to see. We have to decide what happens here because we have to calculate the points. But it just, hearing you say that, Rain Day, hearing that we may not have some of these teams present, it just really comes to show you how the era of Apex has shifted significantly with the changes that we've seen brought on from season 19 to season 20. How legend compositions have now swapped over to certain teams that feel more comfortable playing older legend comps that worked out for them in their prime. I'm thinking about the double big boy Valkyrie comp that Optic had played earlier on, just a week ago or so. But now seeing how the score has tallied up and teams like Moist, Dark Zero make their presence known loud and clear in North America, it definitely shakes things up here for the region.
And Dia, that's what Season 20 really gave us. It was mid-season that we got this patch and added 100 new perks to all 25 legends. We still end up with some similar results, but it was a matter of who could find their way through what felt like a bit of a fog of how do you really navigate this new season with so many different options.
Yeah, I think one of the things that has really been rewarded this season is not just who's finding the answers fastest, but who's willing to experiment with as many things as they can and rethink the way that Apex Legends is meant to be played. Teams that tried to play the same old zone-oriented style in the same way often fell really short, not because zone is substantially weaker, but because they weren't adapting to how new zone should be played. In the same way we saw a lot of edge teams that really wanted to fight early sort of fall off because they were prioritizing fights over picking up Evo harvesters early and being able to put themselves in a more advantageous and powerful position when compared to their opponents. And really being able to rethink the way that you play Apex Legends is crucial. And it makes me laugh a little, Rain Day, to think that one of your favorite teams, Legacy, has once again, just at the end of the season, put themselves in an arguably more powerful position than they were in just last year. Because Legacy, they're old school. They've been around for a really long time.
Yep.
But today, they made things really, really close with TSM.
I mean, when it comes to Nizul and Jaguares and Yanya coming in, when you see them in a 3v3, it's an even fight or it leans their way. These are the best of the best when it comes to playing Apex and winning in a battle. But one of the best things about it is that you still have to go through and win the right battle to make it happen. As far as points, they could have been our winner today, but they didn't win the right game out of the two that they did win. That was where TSM showed up. And it's this something that they've got going on that separates them from the pack. But as we head back through the games that we didn't overview, let's take a look at just how some of those final circles did end up going, especially when it came to setting up our finish that just happened. After 7, it would be match 6, Vicky, that would kind of start to say, well, who is going to take this? Because now we got multiple teams on match point.
Yeah, this was an explosive game. We had 3, I believe, teams in total get to match point after this game alone, with Legacy taking this ginormously. I mean, look at the way that all this fighting is happening over by Riser, and then meanwhile, the path less contested was exiting out of Big Mod. The circle round rotation that Legacy had taken after taking a little bit of circle damage in round 3 had allowed them to get into the best spot possible to take that dub, Rain Day.
And of course, when it came down to it, that would mean SSG and Legacy, who fought so well there, would earn themselves a chance to take it all home. But who would they have to beat? The one who holds the trophies all the time. It's TSM, and this time on high ground, they were not going to be easily pushed off.
I can't help but wonder, replaying this in their heads over and over again, if Legacy or LG would have done anything differently. Because what I'm seeing here is 3 teams that are playing ultra conservatively. And that is to no one's fault, but to TSM's great benefit. As Vicky, as you pointed out, this middle ground that they're able to play puts them in the really one uncontestable position. After that, Caustic, I'll be honest, does a lot of work for everyone on the low ground, leaving TSM to pick up a few spare health bars here and there.
There's really nothing you could do in that type of situation because of the position that they were in. As long as they didn't make a mistake, it was basically death for Legacy to climb up and try to fight that and go the half a second, even 1 second it would take to stabilize and start shooting again, or to evac tower. And LG knew that if they pushed Legacy, TSM would drop down, or whoever that was. I think they knew it was TSM at that point, and then just third party that and take the win. So every single team trying to do the best that they could. But that's always how it is in match point finals. And yet, one team continues to be on top more than the rest. That's TSM. And standing by from TSM is none other than the greatest named TSM player of all time, Evan. No, I'm just kidding. I'm a little bit biased there. What's up, Verholz? How you doing, man? Congratulations on the win today.
Thank you. How you guys doing?
Doing great, brother. I want to give you the opportunity. The floor is yours. Yet again, we see you guys in the finals, and yet again, you guys pull it out. And it just seems to surprise people so often. I feel like it's got to even surprise yourselves at times. What is the biggest thing that you notice continually when these tournaments are over? Is it that we should have believed that it would happen all along? What's the biggest takeaway here from you guys after winning yet again?
I don't know, man. After seeing that last zone and right on top of that building that we just happened to pick, like watching the Zeus team like run past that building as well, like allowing us to take it. I mean, I don't know, man. It seems pretty rigged. Like that zone was just a little bit too perfect for us. Like also the fact that team under us decided to not play the balcony and let us take the balcony, giving us like a free win basically at the end. Like Legacy made a. They might have doubted to play the balcony anyways, but I don't know. Things just like that. That was probably one of the like least hard fought match point wins we've ever had. Like that game specifically, because we just didn't have to do anything. We just sat on the roof, dodged some grenades, and everyone else just died to cost the gas on low ground. So I don't know. That one felt, maybe not as satisfying as some of our other ones. Obviously, it's only Pro League, it's not LAN, but it was still. I'll take it. I mean, I'll take anything we can get.
That was actually, it's so funny how you just described all of that, because we've seen that zone before, right? And LG being in the position that they were in, we've seen it pull hard towards that platform. Even with the rotate that you guys would have had from that building, you still had the high ground advantage. But the zone pulled directly on top of the building, so you guys just stayed winning in that situation. But I do want to recall back to early season and the success that you guys keep finding yourselves in, whether it be a slow ramp up or even just immediately going from 0 to 100 real fast. I mean, can you talk about the mentality and the mindset that goes into having to stay cool, calm, and collected and still remain confident in moments where people want to see and pray for your downfall, but you guys still keep staying on top no matter what?
Yeah. We're all so experienced now. Like we have so much experience competing to like just to be the best. Like we all play and practice to get that first place position, and we've just been doing it for so long. Like we're so used to the pressure now, and all the people praying on our downfalls. Like we're so used to the highs and the lows. Like us barely qualifying for LAN last year at Split 2. Like after that, it's like I don't know. It's gonna be hard to top how bad that was. Like I feel like we all pretty thick skinned too. We all very strong mental when it comes to like outside influence. None of us like let us get to us. We can kind of filter out what other people are thinking or saying. We know that like if we put in the work and we practice, we'll do well no matter what. It's our performance is just a result of our practice and our health. And I think like now it's just like it seems like very like now it's just like set in stone. Like our practice and our mental, everything just seems very steady going now.
So there is a lot of like a stalwart attitude that you guys have when it comes to what fans are thinking, how your performance is doing, because like you say, you've got all this belief in yourself about how you'll perform at the end of the season or at the end of the day. And I want to know from the perspective of now a team that has come back and done that multiple times, you clearly have the faith, but how does your mental behind the scenes actually keep you ahead of other teams and not instead just stagnate you into believing that you'll win until you inevitably just don't?
I like to think, I mean, we keep our mental, like we all do our own things to keep our mental and like physical health good. Like we all go to the gym, which I think is super, super important. I think we all get relatively good sleep. I'd say me and Hal at least, Jordan gets some rough sleep, and me and Hal at least I'm pretty confident we get better sleep than a lot of the pro players out there. I think sleep is one of the biggest factors in like performance, like especially like competitive gaming. It's like, it's so easy to just completely ruin your sleep schedule, like practicing. And like a lot of pro players miss out on performance just from sleep alone. We all eat okay. Our diet's pretty trash. That definitely doesn't contribute to our mental. But I don't know. We all live together. That helps as well. I think like being able to see each other almost every single day and like being able to hang out with Apex guys in Austin just makes everything feel a bit more real and there's more weight behind our practice when you can actually see the person that you're playing with and even the people that we're competing against here in Austin. So yeah, I think we all do like a pretty good job staying healthy and mentally healthy. Like none of us do anything that's like super degenerate. I don't know if that's the right word, but yeah, no, we're all good at that.
Well, Evan, you guys have pioneered in so many different ways, certainly pioneered in Apex. But I think at this point, if you guys keep winning match point finals this way, and the only other team that can come close is Dark Zero in winning match point finals, you guys are pioneering in something that I think you look across esports is just really hard to replicate. And so obviously a lot of the stuff you're doing physically, mentally, it's something that I think a lot of teams have to start considering, because you've got not just the confidence, you got the results to back it up, my friend. Congratulations again on the win, and hope you guys enjoy yourselves and celebrate.
Thank you so much.
All right, TSM Verholst, TSM with a big win yet again. Massive stuff. And just to walk us through it as we kind of recap on just hearing him talk about it, we want to throw the results up for you as well, because there's not just implications. We know TSM won, but we also know that these teams were vying for points as well, Vicky, trying to get enough. And we will bring those series results soon. But after match 7, our top 10 look like this.
Yeah, Dark Zero with 9 KP. Legacy, not only did they get top 3, they had to go out with a bang. They said, yeah, we're at match point, but let's just clean up 14 kills while we're at it. Then all the way in the bottom, my eyes are on Exet. They didn't get any KP. They did get placement points, though, alongside Disguise, who were able to get 5 KP. But overall, our usually heavy Fragger teams are on this first page. I mean, even DZ with the 9 KP, Native with 6, something that, you know, we're used to seeing. I'm interested to see how that second page is looking like, though, Rain Day.
Yep, absolutely. As we look at the top, now we look at the bottom. And just to say, one game doesn't determine it all. A lot of teams down here have been performing really well over the course of Pro League, especially Elevate Gaming. You look at Furia, Moist Esports. They were coming into this second place team, as well as Oxygen and Complexity, all in our top 10. But will they have remained that way? That is the question that we want to ask. I know we've been looking to tally these series results, and that means obviously looking to see who will qualify for our LAN, which is coming up in just a bit. We have got the answer now, and it is a very close one with our series results coming up. It means that in first place is obviously TSM, and Legacy will take a nice second there. Dia, the implications of this, you're noticing some teams. Was it enough? I'm not sure.
I'm also really struggling on the mathematics front. Looking at this, I'm noticing that Optic placed above C9, and at the end of the day, they are just going to be judged on their placement and not the difference of points between them. This may very well have been enough for a team like Optic to take out C9 and move themselves into contention, but I'll be honest, Rain, I'm struggling as much with the math as you are, if not more.
Hey, I mean, at the end of the day, I could have gone the route of mathematician, but I didn't. I decided to go sports, little esports. We kept it in the pocket there. But here's the thing. Sitting in 12th, they were holding the position. It was C9. So many teams tried to get ahead of them. They started slow. It was Xset. It was Optic. We talked about how can we have a LAN without them. Well, C9 also entered into Apex just recently, and that resurgence, did that bring them enough confidence, enough poise and results to hold on to their final spot at LAN? Right now, let's bring up our results and see who will be attending in Los Angeles. It certainly will be enough for Cloud9. It'll be enough for Oxygen Esports, but Xset and Optic will just miss out. They will not be at LAN, and this, I know for many, does hurt a little bit, Vicky.
Yeah, by 5 points there between Exit and Oxygen, that comes into question what could have been different, especially in those last few games. That is heartbreaking to see, but a heavy congratulations to those that have made it to LAN. C9 is back in Apex, baby. You love to see it here. Furia, after a rough start, have climbed their way out of the rut and into the big stage, as well as Complexity.
And what a showcase, Dia, from Legacy. I mean, from Disguised, Elevate as well. These teams doing so well to be in our not just top 10, but really in our top 5 performing teams.
Legacy, I mean, did do incredible things today, but what's really amazing to me about Disguised is that they're doing this in a way that nobody else is doing right now. Disguised have got flexibility, and they've got clearly plenty of innovation in them. They're embodying to me one of my favorite things about Apex Legends, which is an expression of individuality. All of our different legends and team compositions have so many things that they can bring to light, and seeing Disguised play exactly how they want to and still be able to succeed is really incredible.
Well, it has been an incredible season to say the least. And Split One has brought us so many different stories and so many different opportunities to tell stories of the players who have shown up and decided to compete on this grand stage. Vicky, I want to get your final thoughts today as we close out our regional finals. We set our teams who are going to land, and we'll see us in Hollywood in just a little bit. What was your big takeaway and thoughts to end it?
The last region that we needed to see perform has come up and has joined the remaining teams that will be playing at LAN. I just cannot wait to see everyone play in person in a city where literally stars are made. Guys, it's been a pleasure here, but man, the competition is going to be absolutely crazy, and it looks like APAC stays on top in the North American region.
Yep, that's right. The pride of North America. That's what I call them. And whenever Genome's around, I make sure to hit that again. And they're North American now, okay? But all jokes aside, Dia, what a journey it's been here this season as well. And this just sets us up for what we can look forward to in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I think that with the teams that we are sending forward to LA, we are going to get a new and elevated form of Apex Legends as the meta will continue to shift as these teams clash once again. But all of the teams that participated in the Split One Pro League from around the world really did give it their all. And as much as my heart soars for those that did make it, I really do want to say a very, from the bottom of my heart, thank you to the teams and the players and the fans who believed in those teams and players for giving it their all throughout the season, even if they didn't quite make it, because we'll be back for Split 2 and they'll have another shot.
That is a great point as well. Our Split 2 qualifiers are coming up. Thank you so much, both of you, for a great day, as well as Zephyr, who's been hanging out with us. He's amazing behind the scenes and had some great calls. He's not going to finish this one off with us here, though, but thank you both so much for everything that you've done. It's really been a great story, and coming up, there's so many different things to pay attention to. Like we mentioned, Split 2, it is coming up. Obviously, we have that in front of us, and teams are looking to qualify, and they're also looking to themselves. Some of our teams have stayed at Pro League. Some of our teams trying to get back in it. Split 2 qualifier is on, so stay tuned for that. But one of the more impressively exciting things that I can announce as well, that you've probably already seen, is that we've still got something happening a little bit later. That's right, at the start of May. But if you want to stay tuned to what we'll be doing at the Galen Center in May through May 2nd all the way through the 5th, the best and only place to stay in touch is, of course, on X at Play Apex Esports, on twitch.tv/Play Apex, and on YouTube to catch all of the VODs and highlights for what we have done today. To me, however, it is time, I believe, on Friday to grab tickets, and I think that just happened. So you can grab your tickets now. People are already booking their hotels, grabbing tickets. People are tweeting about it, talking about it. I don't have to go too far. I am from LA, so that's an exciting thing for me. But for all of you, we cannot wait to see you in person. It is one of the best experiences ever. Grab your tickets now and use that QR code that is right beneath me to be able to get all your information, and keep it bookmarked in case you want to buy them tomorrow, or just buy them and come hang out with us. I don't know what else to say except thank you so much for being amazing on the behalf of everyone here from EA Respawn, Esports Engine, our team behind the scenes, our talent team in front of the camera, and all of you, the people who love and make Apex what it is. I can't wait to see ya. But in the meantime, go play tomorrow, because a new patch comes out and you'll be having a blast on it. So remember to never give up, never stop gaming, and we will see you in LA.